We're getting ready to crank this thing up, guys, so hang tight. What's up? What's up? Billy Carson here, aka Forbidden Knowledge. We want to get as many people on this tonight. We're going to talk about that the Anunnaki create humanity. So I'm going to send out a text message right quick. If you're not on my text message list, make sure you text me so you can get notifications. And also great giveaways, right? We just gave away that one-of-a-kind movie poster for the Black Knight satellite that was autographed by me. The one of one made for the documentary itself, which is an award-winning documentary. And so that was posted on Instagram. The winner was talked about on this account as well. And we've given away a Ford. We've given away a Rolls Royce. We're doing a raffle for a Mercedes. We've given away 6 MacBook Pros in the last couple of years. We've also given away Apple TVs and Roku devices. So text me, text hashtag giveaway to 954-245-0086. That's 954-245-0086. And I'm going to go ahead and drop a text message to everyone who's in that database right now. Let them know I'm online and what the topic is about tonight. All right. All you guys fill up in the chat. Make sure you share this video. Make sure you like this video. And make sure you click that like button, please. Click that like button. Let's get the old algorithm going here and make sure that we get this video seen everywhere possible. Got to catch that algorithm sometimes. If you don't catch the algorithm too quick, the video doesn't do that good. So we got to catch the algorithm. So please share the video, like the video. And I'm going to drop this text message right quick, which I just did. And we're going to get this party started. Talking about the Anunnaki tonight. All right. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be an amazing talk. Then I got to hop off of this and hop on Black Magic's account as well to talk about some other things tonight in the quantum realm. So it's going to be a great night. Going to be a long night for me because I still have to pack for my trip. Somehow I'm going to get through all of this and get it all done. All right. So let's check out the chat room right now, see what we got in the chat. All right. I see the chat filling up quick. Oh, Cynthia. What's up, Cynthia? Cynthia went to Egypt with us in 2022, October of 2022. She was one of the Billy Boot Camp, leaders. And so actually, I think you might have given it the name Billy Boot Camp, Cynthia. But it was called the Billy Boot Camp because of how much walking we did, how much climbing and hiking we did throughout Egypt into pyramids, ancient sites, shafts of pyramids, underneath areas and hidden crypts at Dendera. It was an amazing trip. And they started calling it the Billy Boot Camp. But if you want to go to Egypt with me again this year, October, make sure you click that link. It'll be in the caption of this video. We're going to be going back in October of this year, October 2023. It's going to be an amazing, amazing tour. We have 2 tours this time because one tour wasn't enough. We couldn't. So many people wanted to go. We said, okay, we'll break it up into 2. So we're going to do a first tour for 10 days, and then we're going to do a second tour right after that for 5 days. We're like 4.5 days. So for people who can't be away from their kids or their work or whatever that long, you have a shorter trip, which will encompass some of the stuff right around Giza, like the Giza Plateau, the Great Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid, Saqqara, where we'll go to the Step Pyramid, and then go into the underground area of that, what I call the Halls of Amenti, which is called the Serapeum, and probably to the Egyptian Museum of Civilization, and maybe even over to Memphis, which used to be the former capital of Egypt, where there's a megalithic statue there of Ramses. And then boom, you're done, and you're coming back home again, right? A compact, small trip. The 10-day tour is massive and elaborate. We have a cruise. We have we have our own cruise ship with just all the people from Forbidden Knowledge on the ship. Nobody else. We have private access to a lot of the stuff. Like we'll go private access to the Great Sphinx, private access to the Great Pyramid. It's going to be a mind-boggling tour. Abu Simbel. We're going to go to Dendera, the Temple of Seti, and Abydos, and you're going to see technology in the hieroglyphs. It's going to be mind-blowing. DJ Quicko rock the Donnie Arcade Anunnaki song. Yeah, you got to look up that song, Anunnaki by Donnie Arcade. I produced that song back in 2016. It was actually one of our very first hits. Thanks, DJ Quicko. It's going to be an amazing trip, an amazing tour. You don't want to miss it. Right after that, we're going to go to Cambodia. So I'm taking people on a tour to Cambodia. If you want to know more about this, go to forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com. I'll drop it in the comment feed for you real quick. And click on tours. You can come to Cambodia and see some of the most amazing sights you'll ever see with your eyes at Angkor Wat, the largest temple complex in the world. We'll hike through the jungle to other amazing temples. And you'll get to see the most amazing sights that hardly any human being has ever seen before. All right, so go to forbiddenknowledge.com. I just dropped a link in the comment box. Click on that link and go to tours and see if you want to go with either the 10-day for Egypt trip, the 4-day Egypt trip, it's really 4.5 days, or the tour to Cambodia, which is a 5-day tour of Cambodia to some of the most ancient sites, Top Prom, Angkor Wat, some of the most incredible places you'll ever see. Pictures do them no justice. Literally, pictures do them absolutely no justice. You have to see these things in person. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find this short 30-second clip from Egypt real quick and run that before we get into the Anunnaki, since Egypt is all really about the Anunnaki. That's literally what it really is all about. Let's see here. According to the, when you look into the Emerald Tablets, it basically says that both the Atlantean priest king who ruled over the land of Chem before it was called Egypt for 14,000 years claimed to have built the Great Pyramid. I'm looking for this short clip here real quick that I could run for you guys on our little trip to Egypt. Little some of the highlights. Let's see. I think this is it here.
Sorry, Sue, I can't get the Wi-Fi.
No one can. We got rid of cable internet. Rising prices, equipment charges.
But that's a bit dramatic. A better plan is Verizon Home Internet.
Switch to 5G home internet, starting at $35 per month, and the price is the price guaranteed. Only on Verizon.
Listen, that tour was fire, okay? It was mind-blowing. We had a great time. At the end of that tour, bonds were created for life, friends for life. 70 amazing souls went with us on that trip, and we are all still great friends till this very day. There's been a lifetime bond that was created from that trip, and at the end of that tour, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Everybody was teared up, young, old, man, female, didn't matter. Everybody got emotional, and we had a great time. I was the tour guide. We had a lot of security out there as well. So if you want to go, you want to find out more, I dropped the link in the comment field. Drop it one more time. Make sure you register for the Forbidden Tour, the Forbidden Tour of Egypt. If you want to know about the Anunnaki firsthand and see what they did, what they built, what they created, the architectural templates that they lay down for mankind to use, the systems that they put into place the history of how they engage mankind on this planet. It's all right there. All you got to do is hop on a plane. And no, you don't need the Jabberwowski for that. There's no Jabberwowski, if you know what I mean, not required. No testing required. All you got to do is hop on a plane and go there, hop on a plane and come back home. That's it. Unless you're from another country that requires you to have that to come back home. But as far as from the United States, it's just like going around the corner. All right. Just like going around the corner. So I'm going to get into this talk tonight. We're going to be talking about the Anunnaki. We're going to be talking about, did they create humans? So there's been a misconception going around for a very, very long time in the way that people have stated and talked about these Anunnaki beings, which are really they are the Atlanteans. Okay. So when you hear Atlanteans and you hear Anunnaki, we're talking about the same people. See, Anunnaki means those that came from heaven to earth or from another place to this planet, from space to this planet. Any being from any planet, anywhere in the known universe that comes to earth is an Anunnaki. Okay. It's a generalized term. Just like if you were me, right? I live in Florida. I live in a city in Florida, right? So let's say Fort Lauderdale, Florida. If I hopped on a spaceship and went to another planet and people were there and they said, well, where are you from? I'm not going to say I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm going to say I'm an earthling from Earth, you see? And so it's a generalized name is what it is. Now, Atlantean is a specific name of the type of civilization that they built. They built an Atlantean civilization on this planet. And I personally believe after many decades of research and investigation, reading over 1,000 cylinder scrolls, tablets, papyruses, ancient texts, and so forth, visiting with ancient sages and wisdom keepers and archaeologists all around the world, my personal hypothesis now is that it's not just Earth that was Atlantis. It was also the moon and extended all the way to Mars and maybe even beyond. They were an interplanetary civilization, not just a ring city in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that sunk. That was just one capital of many capitals that existed on this planet. But they, in fact, were a interplanetary civilization. They had achieved what we would hope to achieve in the future. But you have to remember, according to these ancient tablets, they were approximately 1 million years ahead of us technologically, making anything that they do or did or still do to this day appear to be magic. When a more advanced civilization meets and engages a less advanced civilization, the less advanced civilization will deify the more advanced civilization. It's called a cargo cult. And what you have here on this planet, you have humanity, which is one gigantic 8 billion person cargo cult. That's what we've become. And the deities and everything else that we're worshiping and praying to are not the creator of the universe. There is not one book that exists on this planet, and I've gone through so many more to go through now, don't get me wrong, that is authored by the hand of God itself. I don't want to say him, because him would be an incorrect terminology. You don't give a creator of a universe a gender. There is no gender. God is a frequency. And so what we're saying here is this. The text is written by flesh and blood people, except for one text that I know of. There's only one text that's written by one of these beings. It's the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I wrote my book about this gentleman, right? Look up Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. That's my book. In there, I talk about the guy who wrote his own tablets. He authored them himself. He didn't have a scribe write them. The rest of these tablets and scrolls and everything else were authored by scribes, people that one of these entities would dictate to. They called themselves gods, but they weren't gods. They masqueraded as gods, but they themselves even knew that there was something above them, because they said the creator of all will answer. They will have to answer to the creator of all for what they've done to people on this planet. So they themselves knew that they weren't the creators of the universe, because they called several times in the tablets on the creator of all, knowing that there was something higher than them. And so they duped humanity. Some were nice, some were malevolent, some were benevolent. Some were good, some were evil. Yin, there's yang. Some wanted to help, some didn't want to help. Some tried to kill us off, some tried to save us. You can find this in all these different epics: Epic of Gilgamesh, Epic of Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, and the 7 tablets of creation. These texts predate most texts that exist on the planet, with the exception of the Emerald Tablets, some of the Vedas, and maybe the only thing that will come even close to a written handed down text will be the Mahabharata, right? And so the misconception, let me get back to my point that I was talking about, is there's this misconception between people that are following the ancient astronaut theory, is that the Anunnaki created humans. Now, we have to be careful on how we state this, because according to the text, they didn't create humans. In other words, they didn't just from scratch, out of absolutely nothing, poof, there's humans here through some type of magic or alchemy or something like that, or did they have the creation power? They use genetic manipulation, which we're going to take a look at tonight. We're going to take a look into genetic manipulation that was done in ancient times. And this is one of the very first accounts of this evidence of genetic manipulation. But going forward into the future, even into what you call the modern day Bible, you find genetic manipulation when it comes to Mary, the mother of Yeshua, aka Jesus. I don't like calling him Jesus because Jesus means hail Zeus, and I'm not hailing Zeus. I'm talking about a real person, Yeshua, which is his real name, right? Yeshua was also a product of genetic manipulation through something called vitro fertilization, as well as his grandmother, who was also a virgin birth, which they never tell you about that in Bible study, that Jesus' grandmother, right? Yeshua's grandmother was a virgin birth. You never hear about it. They never talk to you about that in Bible study. Not once have you ever heard that come out of anybody's mouth, except for me, forbidden knowledge. Look it up. Make sure you get all your apocrypha texts, the text that was by accident on purpose forgotten to be put into the Bible by the Council of Nicaea. That's where you find all the incredible truths at, right? In the book of Enoch, he was such an important person that he was spoken about in the Bible, but his book, which talks about these same Anunnaki beings, left out. The Bible talks about the Anunnaki. They call them the Anak in the Old Testament. They say the people that ran into these Anak say that in their eyes, we were grasshoppers in their sight. That's coming from the Bible, the canonized Bible that you take and read and pray to and everything else, right? So these Anunnaki, they exist. And these beings, these people that are in these Sumerian tablets, their names are in the Bible as well, but nobody ever reads the Bible, so they wouldn't even know. We're going to touch on some of this stuff tonight. All right? So I'm going to pull up this PowerPoint. We're going to go over a couple things tonight. We're going to talk about the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, which is an ancient text, a super ancient text. Now, even though the text is quoted to be approximately about 6,000 to 7,000 years old, it's much older than that because it's copied tablets from older copied tablets, because you have to continue the information on and on and on for the next civilization. So even tablet 5, which was just discovered at Somalia in Iraq, was re-added to the 7. But you can tell by the cuneiform, it's thousands of years old. But the story of it comes from even deeper antiquity. And how do we know this? Because we found multiple copies of the Enuma Elish that have different year dating on them. In one, it mentions a planet named Nibiru. In a newer version, which is about 5,000 years old, Nibiru's name was changed to Marduk because Marduk wanted to be the destroyer. So it's pretty interesting stuff. These are the 7 tablets of creation. When you read the Old Testament of the Bible, the majority of the information in the very beginning of Genesis is coming from these 7 tablets, separating the waters from the waters, right? Bringing up the dry land. These are words, these are statements that are copied almost word for word directly from super ancient texts and put into the Bible in Genesis. And then people are running around going, oh man, this is the word of God. No, it's the word of man. It's the word of M-A-N. Okay, M-A-N, that wrote this down as a scribe from beings that were here, that were also, in my opinion, M-E-N, men and women, that weren't any gods. They were just more highly technologically advanced, maybe even more spiritually advanced. They probably had a combination of spiritual and technological advancements that they merged together, giving them godlike powers to a person that's, using copper chisels and chicken bones to build houses. It looks like magic. Looks like magic to them. You got it? So we're going to dig into this a little bit. All right. So we're talking about, I'm looking up because I'm looking over the camera, by the way. He's like, why is he looking up like that? Because I'm looking above the camera to a screen behind the camera. The Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. The Enuma Elish, which is really the way to pronounce it. You could say Elish as well, more Americanized, right? Is the Babylonian creation myth. It was recovered by Austin Henry Layard in 1849 in the ruined library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, which is in Moscow, Iraq. That's the cradle of civilization, okay? That is the cradle of civilization, Iraq, where it's located right now. And there's a whole other podcast I'm going to get into. That Africa extended all the way up into that region back then. Remember, bordering countries are just made by invisible lines created by men. But if you read ancient tablets, you discover that Africa had extended way up into what now is called Arabia. All right. And published by George Smith in 1876. 1876, the Enuma Elish was first published, translated and published in 1876. What does that mean? Why am I saying that so many times? Well, a lot of people tend to think that these tablets are just fabrications of Zecharia Sitchin, a guy who wrote many, many books, amazing books about the Anunnaki. And they say, and in their claims, which you can find all over YouTube and the internet, that he was the only person that could translate this text. And he was the only one who knew the story. And he just made up the story and blah, 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 blah. That's all false. Matter of fact, Zecharia Sitchin didn't translate any tablets. He clearly states in his book, in all of his books, exactly where he got his information, what the sources were. And the Enuma Elish is a main part of his sources of information to write his books, as he quotes in the actual paragraph where he's quoting words from the Enuma Elish. And that wasn't translated by him. Zecharia Sitchin translated absolutely nothing. What he did was he put together the pieces of the puzzle and painted a picture and created stories about these beings in this time frame to the best of his ability. Was he 100% accurate? Probably not, but nobody is. We can only get as close to the truth as possible, and then we can only lay out our hypotheses on what may have happened based on data that we've collected from different sources, which is exactly what he did. That's very important to understand that what I'm reading to you now, what I'm talking about now, is not based on the work of Zecharia Sitchin. It's based on the work of scholars that came long before he was even thought of. He wasn't even in his dad's scrotum yet. So let's just clear the air with the whole Sitchin stuff. Published by George Smith, 1876, the Enuma list has about 1,000 lines. It's recorded in Old Babylonian on 7 clay tablets, each holding between 115 and 170 lines of Sumero-Akkadian cuneiform script. Most of Tablet 5 had never been recovered until recently, and Tablet 5 was discovered at the Sumalai Museum in Iraq, as I talked about earlier. This epic is one of the most important sources for understanding the Babylonian worldview, centered on the supremacy of Marduk. Who is Marduk? When you go into the Egyptian text, you find out that Marduk is Amen-Ra. Yeah. When you say amen, that's who you say an amen to. This guy, one of the most evil, brutal dudes of all time. All right, who also masqueraded as a god and made statements that made it into the Bible, like, I'm a jealous God. There'll be no other God but me, and all that. That's the guy right there. He's also in the Jewish Torah, which I'm going to show you on this tonight. He says, and the creation of humankind for the service of the gods. The creation of humankind for the service of the gods. Its primary original purpose, however, is not an exposition of theology or theology, but the elevation of Marduk. The guy had a big ego. The chief god of Babylon, above all other Mesopotamian gods. There'll be no other god but me. This guy says this in the tablets. It's even in the Egyptian text. This guy was so jealous of everyone and all of what they were really his relatives, these other Atlantean kings. That were ruling over Atlantean cities in different parts of the planet. He didn't want the people on the entire planet worshiping any of them, only focusing strictly on him. And what he ordered people to go around and start defacing the face of all the other gods, including Akhenaten, who was the pharaoh that was in the rule at one point when he was controlling the planet. And he told Akhenaten to have every one of his people go and start defacing everything. That's why the faces are chipped off. They got chipped off in ancient times. And when you go to Egypt with me, you'll learn these things. None of this stuff was chipped off because they didn't want people to know that black people weren't in Egypt. That's actually a falsehood that I actually believed in myself back in the day, until I did what? I got my passport stamp. And when you get your passport stamp and you go places, you find out the truth. And when you start digging into the ancient texts, you start finding out the truth of where the origins of a lot of these problems are. That's why you can dig up a statue that's 5,000 years old. And when you dig it up, the face is chipped off. It has nothing to do with white and black. It has everything to do with this guy right here, Marduk. When you hear the word God during this lecture that I'm giving you tonight, keep in mind I'm not talking about the creator of the universe. I'm referencing the Anunnaki beings that masqueraded as gods with a lowercase g and were worshipped not only by the Sumerians, but by many civilizations that they themselves had kickstarted, okay? The Enuma list exists as various copies from Babylonia and Assyria, and the version of the Library of Ashurbanipal dates back to the 7th century BCE, and the composition of text probably dates back to the Bronze Age, at the time of Hammurabi, or perhaps even earlier in the Kassite era. This is tablet 5 that was recently discovered at the Sumalai Museum in Iraq, and it now has been added to the collection. You can see these tablets at the British Museum in London, which I went to and visited when I was there last year in 2022. And what's interesting is we know that our ancient ancestors had come in contact with these beings because, for one, the Dogon tribe had directly interacted with these beings because they knew this. They knew this order of planets, the shapes, the sizes, the rotational periods, the orbital cycles. They knew the position of the axis and what degree angle of tilt, the colors of the planets. The Dogon, these people right here, they knew all of that. How'd they get this knowledge? How in the world did they get this information? According to them, it was the Anunnaki beings that they call the Nomo. These Nomo beings, they came from Sirius B. These are Anunnaki Atlantean people that came from Sirius B, and they engaged these Dogon beings, people, and they taught them everything about multiple star systems, trinary orbital patterns of a trinary star system, light years away, and all the knowledge of all the planets in our solar system. And I mean complete knowledge too. Orbital cycles, angles on axis, degree of tilt, the colors, the shapes, the sizes. They knew all of that long before what we call modern science knew anything. If you go to the Jewish American Library, all right, jewishvirtuallibrary.org is how you can pull it up, jewishvirtuallibrary.org. Because people say, well, how come I don't see these people's names in any of this, the Torah and all these other, well, first of all, the Torah and the Bible, that's New Age information. Because I found texts that's decades, I mean, that's 10 times older than them, eons older than this text, right? And so you look at this New Age information, it's only a couple thousand years old or so. But you look in there, guess what you find? Look, I just pull up one. I just said Marduk, find Marduk. His name is all over the place. That's Amun-Ra, the Torah. He's all over the place. He's everywhere. Look how many times his name shows up on one page. This is the book that is read by the Jews, right? The Torah, the Ethiopian Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews. This guy is in their book, calling out orders, claiming to be God, telling people what to do, trying to rule over human beings. Clear as day. How come they're not talking about this at Bible study or temple? How come this should be the main topic of discussion, but it never is, not once. There's some images I want to show you, which I'm going to go back to. But when you look at this is an image that I took. This is my very first image that I took from the Mars rover. This is back in 2000, around 2010, 11, somewhere in there, from worldwidetelescope.org. One of the very first images I ever found. And what's interesting is when you read the Enuma Elish, the 7 tablets of creation, it talks about a fact that these beings kickstarted a civilization on Earth and they kickstarted a civilization on Mars. They had 2 civilizations running concurrently. The people on Mars were called Igigi, I-G-I-G-I, Igigi, right? Weird spelling, weird name. And then on Earth, they were just the Anunnaki. But what's interesting is these Igigi were Anunnaki beings, Atlanteans, whatever you want to call them, but they were like the working class people. So they were there, according to tablets, not according to Billy Carson. They were digging canals, they were building structures, they were mining for resources and everything else, but they were doing it for hundreds of thousands of years, and it was wearing them out. And they started getting angry that they felt like they were becoming slaves. They felt like they were literally becoming slaves. When you look at this image, I highlighted a few things that just don't look like rocks to me. They didn't look like rocks. And so I highlighted them. All I did was highlight them and expand them so you can clearly see what they are exactly. I'm not too sure, but I do know they don't look like rocks to me, which leads me to believe that these texts are telling the truth, that there was a concurrent civilization on Mars, same time running on Earth. This is Cydonia, another amazing image from a satellite image that we took flyover on Mars from an area or region called Cydonia. Now, why do they call it Cydonia? This thing looks like a giant lion, right? This is a massive area spanning a lot of miles. You can see there's a 5-sided pyramid, the face on Mars that was discovered, right? And what looks like other pyramid structures along the back of this thing. You can see how the face of the 5-sided pyramid, the DNM pyramid, makes the nose. This is geo-landscaping on a large scale. You have to have, to do this, you have to have technology to carve this many miles of land and terrain to turn it into this image. And what's amazing is Cydonia means Cairo in ancient tongue. So they're calling this Cairo. They always know what's going on. They always hide the truth in plain sight. So let's talk about the translation, right? You have George Smith, okay, 1840 to 1876, was an English Assyriologist, apprentice engraver, but self-taught in cuneiform in the corridors of the British Museum. Eventually, he was hired by Sir Henry Rawlinson, a prominent archaeologist, and Smith achieved worldwide attention when he discovered an account of the flood with obvious biblical parallels in 1872. Zachariah Sitchin wasn't born yet, guys. Related in the Chaldean account of the deluge, this book expands on the previous work and presents numerous translations of tablets, including the first print and appearance of the Epic of Gilgamesh. You also have E.A. Spicer, another person here, long before Zachariah Sitchin. In 1926, E.A. Spicer won a Guggenheim Fellowship to study the remains of the ancient Mitanni and Hurrians in northern Mesopotamia. While there in 1927, he discovered the Tepe Guara, one of the world's earliest cradles of civilization, and in 1928, he was appointed assistant professor of Semitics at the University of Pennsylvania and a full professor in 1931. He was the field director and joint excavation of the American Schools of Oriental Research and the University Museum in 1930 to 1932 and 1936 to 1937. Undertaking excavations at Tepe Guara, Tel Bila, he also translated the Hurrian legal text found at Nutsi. After the war, he returned to the University of Pennsylvania, where he was chairman of the Department of Oriental Studies from 1947 until his death in 1965. He was also appointed Ellis Professor of Hebrew and Semitic Languages and Literatures there in 1954. He translated and wrote extensive commentary for the volume on Genesis in the Anchor Bible series and was one of the editors of the Torah in the New Jewish Publication Society of America version of the Old Testament. A noted student of his, Marsh Greenberg, became the Israel Prize Laureate in Bible Studies. These are the people that translated these tablets and these texts. These ain't no idiots, okay? So for anybody, let me move this, let me pull this down for a second. Let me minimize it, because I got to say something. For anybody who's claiming that these texts are hogwash and these people don't know what they're talking about, and you think you got a higher IQ than these people, the two guys I just read to you, IQs are off the charts. These two guys are the most revolutionary scholars of all time in terms of ancient history and ancient tablets and texts. Period. So if you think you got a higher IQ than these guys, then you need to let's have a debate, because you probably, let's have, first of all, let's do an IQ test. Number one, let's take the IQ test and see where you're at. Let's see how many languages you can actually speak. I can dabble in 5 languages right now. Pretty good too. How many languages can you speak? How many ancient texts and tablets have you translated for the world to be able to?
No living being should ever eat processed food for every single meal of their life.
To have knowledge and wisdom and understanding? 0. So these people have real credentials, and real credentials to me, they override anybody out there talking anything crazy, and especially people who have no passport stamps, period. When you have no passport stamps, you can't even step to me and say anything. You can't even say hello. Next. Let's take a look at this one here before I go on to more tablet. Leonard William King. And he was an English archaeologist and Assyriologist, educated at Rugby School and King's College in Cambridge. He collected stone inscriptions widely in the Near East, taught Assyrian and Babylonian archaeology at King's College for a number of years, published a large number of works on these subjects. He's also known for his translations of ancient works such as the Code of Hammurabi. He became an assistant to the keeper of Egyptian and Assyrian antiquities at the British Museum. Here's some of his works. First Steps in Assyrian, a book for beginners, being a series of historical, mythological, religious, magical, epistolary, and other texts printed in cuneiform characters with interlinear transliteration and translation of a sketch of Assyrian grammar, sign lists, and vocabulary. Letters and inscriptions of Hammurabi, Encyclopedia Biblica, Egypt and Western Asia in the light of recent discoveries, chronicles concerning early Babylonian kings, legends of Babylonia and Egypt in relation to Hebrew tradition. The 7 tablets of creation is his translation, or the Babylonian Assyrian legends concerning the creation of the world and mankind, the Code of Hammurabi. These are the kind of people that are translating these texts. It's not it's not what you think. It's not people who are just sitting around in a robe and slippers with a prepaid track phone trying to figure out what these things said. That's not what's happening. It's real work being done here. It had been done a very, very long time ago. Let's take a look at how cuneiform is actually written by Mr. Finkel at the British Museum.
Which is a Semitic tongue related to the modern languages of Hebrew and Arabic and Aramaic. The writing system which Cyrus's officials used was the traditional cuneiform script, which had been invented in ancient Iraq well before 3000 BC. It is written by pressing a stylus, something a bit like a chopstick, into the surface of the clay, which is nearly dry, and the signs which convey the sound of the language consist of different arrangements of these strokes. They're written one by one, and the reader has to join them up, and the sound emerges from the clay. This is the line that says, I am Kurash, Shar Kishtati, king of the world, the great king, king of Babylon, and so it goes on. So we're going to write Kurash. So the first sign, Ku, has a big vertical, 2 small horizontals, 1 bigger horizontal, a little vertical, and another horizontal, like a box. This is Ku. Then Ra, we have 3 strong horizontals to begin, 1 big one next to it, then 1 little vertical wedge, and 1 bigger vertical wedge. Ku, Ra. Now we do Ash, which is 3 long horizontals, Komsa, and then a vertical in the middle. So we can read this, Ku, Ra, Ash, the name of Cyrus.
All right, so move this out of here. So you see the difficulty in writing this text. That's just a small sample of just writing a few words. Can you imagine how much effort it takes to write thousands and thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of lines of that text? It was a very, very, very important job. You were truly honored to be able to write that information, to be able to even have the knowledge on how to do it, how to use that stylus in the wet clay. And then you were truly honored to be able to take it, from somebody that was dictating it to you. It was a high level honor. It was considered like the highest level you can think of. If you were to think of a high level honor today, like getting a special star or a special award, whatever the highest level you can think, that's what it was for these people. Also, they took it so seriously that they made sure they got everything to as accurate as they possibly could. When you're reading these stone tablets, you're looking backwards in time, and you're getting as close as you can possibly get to the actual information. You're getting the closest you can get to the truth. You can never get to the absolute truth. That's impossible. And if anybody tells you can, they're lying to you. If anybody says this is the absolute truth, they're lying. But you can get very close because you know the care, the dedication, the understanding, the mindset of these people in their glory of having the capability and the honor of writing this stuff. They were doing the absolute best. They gave you 100% of whatever they can give you. And so when you read these ancient texts, which are baked clay, which turns into stone, you're as close as you can possibly get to information that was issued and given out in ancient times. And another thing about these tablets, you can't change what they say. You cannot change a stone tablet. You can't alter these stone tablets. You can't make it say spaceship. You can't make it say, genetic modification. You can't make it say these things. You can't. There's no way rock Photoshop in the third dimension that you can have a clay mold into something else, a tablet mold into something else. What you're looking at is what was written. Whether you want to admit to yourself or not, these people were talking about some super advanced technology in the ancient times, far, far beyond what we have right now, far, far beyond. Okay, I mean extremely far beyond as well. Let's take a look at something here. I'm going to read from this computer here, from one of these, from some information from the Anunnaki Lish. See if I can pull this up here. Hold on a second. Let me see if I got the right area here. Hold on one second. Let's see. Just had it up here. I want to find this section which is talking about some of the creation aspects from the Anunnaki Lish without having to go through the whole doggone text, because that's a lot of text. And it's very interesting. Let's see here. But there's so much text here, it's incredible. Just so much text. Let me go to the top. Let's see if I can find it by search. Just look for Adamu, which is the first man. Okay. The Elohim. Elohim is a plural term. Even in the Bible, it's a plural term. They try to pretend like it's a singular term, but Elohim, the Elohim is the same thing as the Naturu of ancient Kemet. The Naturu, the Elohim, they're the same exact people. The pantheon of Sumeria, same exact people. Same exact people. I'm talking about a group of ancient people that had supreme tech and supreme knowledge. The Elohim said this, and this is what made it into the Bible. This is in the Anunnaki Lish, which predates the Bible. The people in the Bible weren't even in their papa's sacks yet, okay? They didn't even exist as a chromosome yet. They didn't even have a chromosome yet. They weren't even thought of yet. Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Does that sound familiar to you? Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Isn't that interesting? That you can find this in text that predates the Bible by tens of thousands of years. So according to these tablets, this took place some 455,000 years ago. And but that was when they got here. But the creation of the Adamu took place around 300,000 years ago to 200,000 years ago. And that's when Homo erectus suddenly changed into Homo sapien, according to modern science. The process by which fashioning of the primitive worker was achieved is then described in the Atrahasis epic, as well as in several other texts. It involved obtaining from the blood of the god his tima. Okay, tima, that's probably his DNA. Scholars translate as personality or life essence, and mixing it with the ti'it of the Abzu. The term ti'it has been presumed to come from the Akkadian word tit, which equals clay, which is why it talks about using clay in the Bible. Hence the notion echoed in the Bible that Adam was fashioned from clay, but it's not exactly what it meant. They manipulated that terminology to get you to believe that somebody picked up some dirt and turned it into a human being. I would never want to be considered that I was just turned from dirt into a person. That means I was just a lump of mud. Now I'm a person. To me, that's not magical. To me, that's just dumb. Anyway, the life essence of personality of these gods was mixed with the essence of the existing being found here on this planet at the Abzu, which is in Africa. By mixing genes extracted from the blood of a god with the essence of the existing earthly being, the Adam was genetically engineered. So the topic of this is, did the Anunnaki create mankind? In a way, yes, but creation from zero to scratch, no. What they did was our cousins were already here. We had cousins here. According to these tablets, these beings came to this planet. They saw us. They didn't even care. They were like, whatever, let them do what they're doing. We're going to go ahead and start building this breakaway civilization on this planet, mining these resources and building this civilization out. They had their floor plans. They had their street grid. They had everything they wanted to do laid out beforehand. It's all talked about in the tablets. And Lil said, I'm going to create the plan for all time on this planet. They started doing their work. They went right to work. They never touched us, never interacted, never messed with us. But in the Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis epic, something very interesting happens, which goes back to Mars. These EGG beings, which were also related to these Anunnaki people, these Atlanteans on Earth, they said, man, we're doing too much work. Like, you got us out here laboring like slaves, and when we ask for breaks, you don't give us any breaks. How long did they work? According to the tablets, they labored for around 250 to 300,000 years, nonstop, generation after generation. They just kept working, building. No breaks, no real rest, being worked like slaves. Finally, and read this in the Atrahasis and also in the Enuma Elish, they say, you know what, man, this is getting to be too much, you know? I think they think we're slaves here, and we're not slaves, so we need to go ahead and get some straightening. So these beings, these EGG people, they got together while on Mars. They had a discussion about it. They said, well, time to go to war. Time to go to war against the gods of Earth. That's Anu, who was the father, and then Enlil and Ea Enki. That was the Trinity right there. All right, those three people were running the planet. So what did they do? They got in their ships and they fell from Mars to Earth. They came from Mars to Earth. These are the gods that fell from heaven to Earth in the Bible to go against God, to go against Anu, not the creator of the universe, God, to go against Anu, A-N-U. They show up in Adam's calendar in South Africa, which back then was called the Abzu. They go to the location where they are in the middle of the night and they encircle the camp. Read this in the tablets, read it. They encircle the camp. And then everybody begins to wake up because somebody comes and bang, 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 bang on the door. Like, get up, we here. And like, who's that rabble on my door? What's that rabble on my door? They call it rabble on the door in the tablets. They begin to get up and look around. The guards now are waking up. Everybody's looking around like, oh man, the EGG are here. They don't look too pleased. They don't look too happy. They got weapons. Anu and Lil Enki, they come outside. The war's getting ready to happen. Enki comes up with an idea, says, I have an idea that might fix the problem. There is an existing, keyword, existing being on this planet. They're talking about our cousins. Before we became Homo sapien sapien, we were already here. Already. But we weren't Homo sapien sapien, and we weren't monkeys either. We were advanced people. We were smart people. We were just more spiritually in tune with the planet and ourselves. We weren't, we weren't like we are now with disconnected DNA. They disconnected our DNA and all this other good stuff. And so they said, Enki says in the tablets, he says, we will take our essence and combine it with their essence. And then we will make them into the workers. They will bear the load of the Anunnaki. And that's exactly what started to begin. So they went into this, they came to an agreement, and the EG just said, okay, look, if you guys are really going to do this, we won't go to battle right now. We got you outgunned right now because there's a lot of workers, there's a lot of us, and not that many of you guys. And if we decide to, we can take you out right now. We're far away from the home planet. There's nothing anybody can do. This is like the Wild Wild West out here. We can do whatever the hell we want. So they're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and let you do this. All right. And so now, very good point Kelvin brings up here. And thank you for the donation. The Anunnaki had considered, one of their considerations was artificial people. AI, sound familiar? Artificial beings, sounds a lot like robotic AI. And the brother said, no. They had a few of them in the medical place that they had, this medical city they established to help with the workers. But they said that if we have too many, then what will they need us for? What happens when they realize they don't need us? Even they knew back then that robotic AIs, too many of them, was dangerous. So they decided not to do the robotic AI. They decided to start tampering with genetics, organics. So they genetically modified the existing hominid. Now, what they did initially, if you read these tablets, they didn't come to the first successful Homo sapien right away. They didn't even come to a Homo sapien right away. They began to clone these people that were already here, genetically modify them with their DNA and everything, disconnect some of their DNA, get them to understand their language and be obedient, and they had them starting to do labor. But the problem in the tablets was this: these people couldn't reproduce on their own. It's just like when you take a tiger and a lion, you get a tigon, or a lion and a tiger, you get a tigon. A lion and a tiger that mate they can mate with something, but they're never going to be able to give birth. They're never going to get anybody pregnant or give birth to anything, right? They're bare. They're barren. They can't do it. Same thing was happening with our cousins. They said, damn, this is a slow process.
Put your trust in Toyota Service Centers.
What's for lunch?
Gas station sushi.
I wouldn't trust that.
Oh,
It's pungent.
Stop into a service center today for our break savings event. Toyota Service Centers. Keep your Toyota a Toyota.
We need an army of people now. These EGG, they're going to come back and they're going to be pissed. They're going to destroy us. They're going to destroy us. And Chris Jackson, did the Anunnaki kill all the dinosaurs? Yes, they did, because they needed to make way for the workforce and the civilizations that they were building out here on this planet. They talk about using a directed asteroid attack or direct comet strike. So this is pretty interesting. So they're like, we gotta speed this process up. ISIS comes up with an idea. She says, you know what? I'm gonna take the egg out of one of these beings. We're gonna add our essence to it. I'm gonna put that in my womb and carry it to term. So this is the first of the genetic experiment that led to the Homo sapien. There's a famous cylinder scroll at the British Museum with Isis holding up the baby, saying, my hands have created it. The first Adamu, which means first man. The Adamu, which means first man. And so she put this egg in her womb. Now, creating an egg in this way, or in fertilization in that way, is called creating a zygote in modern genetics, or what we call modern genetics today. She created a zygote. She inserted it into her womb. It attached. She went 10 months, according to the tablets, not 9, gave birth to Adamu. After she gave birth to Adamu, once they got it to a mature state, they then had him begin to mate with some of these other beings that they had already been tampering with. Didn't work. Mating didn't work. Mating didn't work. They kept trying to mate. This is in the Eden, E-D-I-N. It clearly states in the tablets it's E-D-I-N, Eden. In the Bible, it's Eden. Isn't that interesting? Eden was a gigantic outdoor laboratory with guards. The same guards that they talk about in the Sumerian tablets. If you read the Bible, they have the same guards at the gates there. And these guards have weapons in the Bible. They got weapons in the Sumerian tablets. You better not try to go in or out. They're keeping you in, and they're keeping the people on the outside out. And then what happens? They say, well, this ain't working. We can't make this guy. So his sperm, let me check the sperm again. His sperm is working. It's swimming, but it's not working with these other beings. We got to do something else. So what they do, they take some of his own DNA. They clone they clone Eve out of him. Then they mate him and Eve. And guess what? Bingo, it worked. She gets pregnant. Oh, now we got the formula. Now we don't have to keep making these damn clones. It's a lot of work. So now Adam and Eve is the first genetically modified Homo sapien that can mate with each other and have babies. So they begin to then reproduce that same experiment by taking eggs out of other women, inserting them into wombs of Anunnaki women, having them give birth, and they call them the Hathors. These are the Hathors, all right? These are the Hathors that you learned about in ancient Egypt. Somebody says, do you know how our cousins got here? Yes, I do. If you talk to the ancient, the Aboriginals who I met in Australia, according to them, in ancient times, they were seeded on this planet by Pleiadians. That is their verbal handed down history for thousands of years. Not just them, also the indigenous natives of the North and South Americas. Same exact story. Interesting that this is an abandoned seed planet, that they seeded this planet with people, and then some period of time went by, they were gone. Then these Anunnaki people arrive and say, yeah, these people are just abandoned here. They don't even know what they're doing. They're just trying to learn how to develop themselves from scratch. And they took advantage of it. So back to the story. So they now have this mating thing going on. The Hathors have been doing these birthing houses, reproducing the same experiment with Adam and Eve. And now we've got, because you have to have a genetic pool. You can't create, listen to me, people. If you're a grown person right now, if you're a grown up and you still believe that 2 people can create 8 billion people, because we got 8 billion people on Earth right now, there's something wrong with you. I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying you got to rethink who you are and how your intelligence level is. I'm just saying. Because if you go and have sex with your sister right now, you already know that baby going to be retarded. You know this for a fact. It's going to be a disabled baby, disabilities coming out the womb every time. And over time, by the 3rd or 4th generation, it's going to be all kind of malformed disabilities, right? So if we know that for a fact, then what makes you think that Adam and Eve is going to create 8 billion people? 2 people are going to create 8 billion. We got to really begin to think here. That's not what happened. The tablets tell you exactly what happened. It wasn't just Adam and Eve. They then created birthing houses. They duplicated the experiment with other Anunnaki women, giving birth to more and more of these Homo sapiens, creating a gene pool that they built up so that they can intermingle and intermate and create babies. And the proof of this is very simple. When you go into the Old Testament of the Bible, I got to check the time because I got to get on a podcast shortly. Let me tell Richard Merritt I'm almost ready. Hold on. I know he's probably texting me. Okay. He didn't text me yet. Good. When you go into the Bible, Old Testament, you find out that obviously Cain killed Abel, right? Over a dispute because one was jealous that God was having more favor over the other one's offering and so forth and so on. So out of jealousy, he killed his brother. Now what happens? God comes back, but who's the God? God is Yahweh. Who is Yahweh in the Bible? Enlil. And Lil comes back, according to the ancient tablets, and he's asking like, hey, what's going on here? Because by then, you know, he realizes that he killed a brother. There's a murder going on. One of the first recorded murders in biblical history, but not in history itself, because in the ancient tablets, there's a million murders going on. And he's like, why'd you do this? And so forth. So he's telling him what happened. He's ashamed and everything else. He's kicked out of Eden. He's kicked out of the laboratory because this guy's violent now. And he goes, what Cain says something very important in the biblical text. He says, the people out there will kill me. The people out there will kill me. What people? There's only supposed to be a couple of people on this planet. What people out there? If it's Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, then what people are out there that's going to kill you? There were already hundreds of thousands of people out there living, working, and everything else when Cain was actually born. And then what does God say in the Bible? He says, don't worry, I'm going to put a mark on you, I'm going to brand you so that the people out there know you my boy and they won't touch you. That's what the Bible says. That's exactly what the Bible says, right? And so they brand him. He knows like, hey, okay, don't touch this guy. He's a Canaan. That's where the Canaanites came from, all right? So was the alien woman found on the moon real or fake? Somebody's asking me in the chat. That's a good question. The footage looks amazing. I just can never find any backed up evidence to prove it. Do I think it's real? I tend to believe it. My personal opinion, I believe it, but I can't say factually that it's real. I just can't do that. I'm not like a lot of these YouTube accounts that will just go run and jump on something because it sounds good. It's going to get a lot of views. I personally think it's actively real, but I can't make any claims as to it. I'm still a little bit in the gray because there's no way for me to prove that it is. I don't know what camera was used, who took the footage. You know, did the person, was it a former astronaut that escaped? Or I can't really find any information on it. Until I can do that, I can't say unequivocally yes. I can only tell you my opinion. I like the footage. All right. And so this is what happened with Cain. With Cain. So there were people already out there. God says to him, "You'll know your wife. You'll meet her. You'll meet this woman. You'll find a woman out there. You guys are gonna fall in love, and you're gonna build this whole Canaanite kingdom." That's the Bible said. So people were already out there. His wife was already outside of Eden. She existed already. There wasn't two people giving birth to 8 billion people. Stop thinking that. Stop teaching that to your kids, please. I'm begging you. It's foolishness. If you believe that, then start going having sex with your relatives right now. See what happens when your baby come out. Just see what happens. It didn't happen that way. Read these tablets. It tells you exactly what happens. These beings were mating. They had created this mating farm, this mating laboratory called Eden. And Lil was known as the Lord. He was known as Satan, the Lord of Eden. Satan, the Lord of Eden. Satan. You wonder where that came from? Yeah, he's Satan. The snake that was in the garden was his brother, Enki. Enki came with the knowledge to Adam and Eve and told them that they were stronger and bigger and brighter, and that when he did the genetic tinkering, that he put a little extra in them, that one day in the future they would be able to tap back into it, and they themselves could rise higher than the Anunnaki. And his brother found out about this and started calling him the devil. And that information is in the Myth of Adapa. Do they have that book down here? It's upstairs. The Myth of Adapa, which is another incredible ancient text, cuneiform text that's available. I did a whole thing with Matthew LaCroix on the Myth of Adapa. It's so powerful. In the Bible, where it's talking about the saying that, you know, the angels were jealous of human beings because they were going to be exalted higher than them. That comes from the Myth of Adapa. Ancient text that's talking about human beings, us, being created at a higher level, but not knowing we were than the Anunnaki themselves. We have to tap back into our DNA. We have to tap back into our what they're calling junk and plug it back in. We have to tap into our pineal gland and our higher consciousness. We have to tap back into our frequencies, get back on the frequency mode of love, understanding, empathy, service to others, and also then tap into all of our innate gifts that we naturally have. Things that they had to enhance with technology were built into our avatar bodies. Psychic abilities, telekinesis, intuition, all these extrasensory perceptions that we don't think we even know exist in our bodies, but they're there, just lying dormant, waiting for us to tap back into them. So did the Anunnaki create human beings? Not exactly. They genetically modified our ancestors, which turned us into Homo sapiens sapien. And in actuality, all of us are Anunnaki because we all have the DNA of these beings running through our veins today. So every person on this entire planet is an alien. You're all hybrids, all right? Anyway, that's my time for tonight, guys. Thanks for spending this time with me. I got a couple things I want to show you real quick before I pop out of here and hop on this next podcast. We have I'm gonna get the link to this real quick. We have a special workshop coming up. It's called Unlocking the Supermind Codes by Billy Carson and 19 Keys. This is an event you just don't want to miss, unlocking the Supermind codes. It's going to be a mind-blowing event. 19 Keys and myself, it's going to be 8 hours, and that's going to be coming up on May 21st. You're not going to want to miss this event. It's going to be one of those deep things. We're going to teach you how to tap into your true powers, the codes that govern your supermind. I just dropped a link in the chat. Every person has a supermind. We're going to teach you how to unlock the supermind code, because those superminds, your supermind has coding, and every person's code is slightly different. But how do you tap into those codes? I found my codes. 19 Keys found his codes. We learned how to access those codes. I've never talked about this in any workshop ever. And I've done hundreds of workshops and classes. I've never talked about the Supermind codes. We're going to get deep into the Supermind codes, and I'm going to teach you how to actually unlock your coding. How do you tap into your true gifts, your true powers? My gift, my super gift is administration. I have the gift of administration. I fully have tapped into it, accepted it, and completely embraced it, which is why I'm experiencing the benefits of abundance 24/7 in the financial matrix. There's many different matrices that exist. For me, my greatest gift has been my gift of administration. It's allowing me to build a legacy. I can also now teach you my codes for that, and you can encode that into your supermind. You can tap into that power. Everything I do, everything I put my hand on now, it excels and it succeeds. Why? Because I fully tapped into all the codes now. I've got all the codes cracked. I'm tapping in. We're going to teach you how to actually tap into your supermind codes and unlock them. It's a workshop you don't want to miss. It's going to be 19 Keys and me, Billy Carson, together, teaching you for 8 hours how to tap in and unlock the supermind codes. I dropped the link in the chat. Again, you don't want to miss this event. And last but not least, we do have a raffle. The raffle is for a Mercedes-Benz AMG. You know, we gave away the Ford, we gave away the Rolls-Royce. Now we're giving away a Mercedes-Benz AMG, a car with only 12,000 miles. It's got still 3.5 or 4 years left on the warranty, bumper to bumper. This is a car somebody can actually afford to keep, and it's an amazing, beautiful car. I'll let you see the commercial for it real quick if I can find it here. This commercial. I dropped a link to the raffle inside the comments. It'll also be in the caption of this video. If you want to join the Supermind workshop for 8 hours with 19 Keys and myself, we're going to be doing something very special. We're going to be taking people from the Supermind ticket box, the box office, people that bought tickets. And every month, we're going to randomly pick someone to have a personal consultation directly with us on a Zoom call. We may even fly a few people in to meet with us in person. This is going to be an amazing build to a great, great, great event, something you just don't want to miss. So get your Supermind tickets. The link is in the bio or caption of this video. Link is in my bio and other social media accounts. It's also in the comments in the chat. All right. And also underneath this video or audio, if you're listening to us as an audio podcast, you can find this as well. All right, everyone. I love you guys. Thanks for all the chat donations tonight. I'm going to hop on Black Magic 363. All right. But I love you guys. I appreciate you. Hopefully you learned something tonight. Hopefully I brought you some knowledge that you didn't know, something that add another feather to your cap. And again, I always bring my receipts. You know exactly where I got my information from. There's nothing coming off the dome here. This is real knowledge. Real, tangible knowledge that you can go research for yourself, all right? Love you guys. Peace.
Conversations that'll certainly cause controversy. So join me tonight with the greatness of Billy Carson. We're going to be talking about a lot of things when it comes down to the water. So you might want to go get you a drink, because let me tell you, once we talk about this water, you're like, hey, should I drink it? Absolutely, yes, you need water to survive. But anyway, I want to thank each and every one of you. And like I said, we're going to have a great show as well. Now, the rule is put the children to bed, because we talk about things that may cause nightmares. And if you have not fixed dinner, then you got a Texas recipe. And that is some biscuits, some bacon, a little syrup. You can put the woman, I mean, not the woman, but the husband, the wives, anybody else who don't believe in UFOs, put them to bed, right? Because at this point, this is what we talk about tonight on Tuesdays. And I'm excited to be here. And we're going to kick this show off right about now. So let's cut this music off and we're going to get into it. Well, anyway, hey, listen, I hope each and every one of you had a great weekend. And if you have not, then we're going to cheer you up a little bit. We're going to have some conversations tonight. We're going to go into a lot of things, but maybe not where you think I'm going to go. When we want to talk about these aliens and extraterrestrials, underwater bases, we're going to really try to do a connection between the two. Because right now, I think for me doing some little research, I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? Is there a difference between extraterrestrials having underwater bases, or is there a difference between aquatic life forms that, or we calling them extraterrestrial? So we're going to talk about some of that tonight. We're going to go through a few key points, and then we're going to have a wonderful Q&A with the greatness of Billy Carson. And so I'm really excited about that, and we'll get that in. But in the meantime, let me just get everything prepped here for everyone. And Billy, how's it going tonight? And yeah, so basically, we're going to have a great show. I'm going to have a couple of topics tonight and bring you in on a Q&A section. So definitely just want the audience to know that you're here with us. And I think we're going to get into some things that's going to change some people's thoughts when it comes down to, is there a difference between, are we thinking everything in the ocean is extraterrestrials? Maybe they just been there for a long time and they're life forms just like we are, you know? And so I think there's some questions from there. But in the first time, I want to thank you again for allowing me to serve the audience here on Tuesday nights as well, and being part of the Forbidden Knowledge crew. And so I'm just kind of happy about that. So with that being said, what are your thoughts? So we're going to get into some conversation. I think it's going to be good. And I'll put up some little topics, but I won't, I'll have you to kind of sit back in a little bit, and I'll bring you back once we are really get into the last little sections. And that'll be in a few moments in a little bit. But in the meantime, I'm going to throw some things out there, and just excited to be here and working on what I call my 5K super challenge. And that is for the YouTube channel. So what do you think about that?
Oh, man, listen. Guys, if you don't know who Roderick Martin is, you need to know. Okay, this man is not only a good friend of mine, but he's powerful. He's got a lot of amazing knowledge, especially when it comes to researching paranormal activity, UFOs, and things of that sort. He was in the Black Knight Satellite Beyond the Signal documentary. Did a phenomenal job in there. So you need to go check out.
When Doug and Andre came to TurboTax,
we navigated a turbulent housing market by
buying a motorhome.
I made their move count. We've guaranteed 100% accurate taxes for millions of new homeowners. Intuit TurboTax.
His YouTube channel. We want to get him to 5,000 subscribers. Go to Roderick Martin's YouTube channel. Also follow him on all social media platforms at Roderick Martin. We want to build his account. This man is bringing the wisdom, bringing the knowledge, and bringing it with energy. And of course, we need a more diverse cast of people bringing this type of information to the world, so that we can hear from all different aspects of life, all different genres, all different races, all different perspectives. We don't just want the one perspective. We need to mix it up. We need to hear it from everybody. And so, Roderick, man, I want to say hats off to you for having the courage and doing the deep research and taking the many years you put into this stuff, man. to be able to make it to where you are now. You've been on quite a few TV shows on mainstream TV talking about these topics, which is hard to do, as you know. Yeah, you're in my documentary. You're working on a few more new shows, which are going to be bringing out more disinformation, and you have your own new show that is in post-production on Forbidden Knowledge TV right now, called Why the Big Secret, an actual TV series, which is in post-production, already filmed. So hats off to you, man. You're doing a phenomenal job. Everyone, please go like and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Make sure you put on that little bell on Roderick Martin's YouTube channel so you get any notifications when he does go live, because he goes live a lot. All right, so thanks a lot. It's going to be a wild ride tonight, guys, so sit tight, buckle up.
All right, so man, I appreciate the shout out. I appreciate the love, and of course, our friendship and how supportive you've been. And it's just been a real ride. I tell people you do everything first class, and that's exactly how you do it. But then on the other side of the friendship, it's first class as well. So I appreciate it, man. So I'm going to get the show started, and then I'll get you back in here for the Q&A section in just a little bit. And, they can follow along, and I think it's going to be good. They're going to really like it. I'm going to go in some directions where some of them may not expect to go, because, but we're going to do it. So I appreciate you, and I'll see you in a little bit.
All right, peace.
All right. So guys, we're going to have a great show. That was the greatness of Billy Carson, and you know him. This is the man, and everything else. But I do appreciate him giving me the opportunities to be part of his network and some of the shows, and also just the friendship that we have, and especially when it comes down to these conversations of some of the things that we do. Oftentimes, there's not a lot of people who want to go too deep into the water, but we're going to go deep into the water tonight. So first, let me give a shout out to all the truth seekers from Why the Big Secret, and the new people from Forbidden Knowledge that comes over there and watch the channel. Shout out to each and every one of you in the chat room today. But I'm not going to waste no more time. We're going to get down to it. So let me kind of give you a quick overview. Here's some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So if you look over to the left, you'll be able to follow along. And as we get down to where we're going to be reintroducing Billy back into the conversation, first thing I'm going to do is set the bar and really talk about the oceans and the water and all of these things. And I think that we take for granted, for instance, number one, often people don't know that the earth is covered with 71% water. Okay, so we got a lot of water out there, but one of the things about it is we only explored about 5% of that. We only have. So that kind of leads us in the direction of all things. What is there? Or do we know what's everything there? And I'm going to point a question out tonight, and I'll bring it back up with Billy as we get down to it. Why don't we go looking down in the bottom of an ocean? We spend so much money trying to get off the planet, going into space, trying to seek for UFOs, all these hearings. Let's find out what the UAPs are, when we might have some stuff right now in the water, and it may be a little cheaper for us to get down there. I mean, we don't have the technology now, but do we really want to go down there if we think what's already there from all of the things? And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But one of the things, again, is, okay, I can get into some of the conversations. So let me bring up where we're going to start. We're going to start with the Mariana Trench. Now, this is one of the most deep waters that we have here on the planet. In fact, some people say that Mount Everest, if you've heard about that, supposed to be one of the tallest mountains and one of the roughest terrains that people like to try to trek up to. If you were to even take that mountain and stick it into the ocean, into this particular section, there will still be miles and miles of the tip of this ocean, of the mountain, for the water. And that just says a lot when it comes down to it, because that's some deep water. That is some deep water. So let's get into the conversation. All right. So I'm going to give you a couple of 10 highlights a little bit about this area. And the reason I'm setting this up, because I want you to get the understanding, I'm sure some of you know already, this is some deep stuff. This is some deep water. And again, there's a lot of things about it, and we'll touch this with Billy in a little bit, is that this is believed to be one of the most ancient seabeds on the planet. And this thing is approximately, 180 million years old. So again, if we want to go back and look at it, is there possible life? Is there all kinds of things? We've heard of Atlantis. We heard of all these places that don't exist, and we're finding all these remnants in the water. Now, despite that, the question is, do things live there? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. And I'm just finding the right word for that. Yes, absolutely. But we know there are some hostile conditions there. There's lack of light. We got acidic conditions there. And then there's also a lot of things, the pressure of the water. Okay, but here's the deal. They have found, microorganisms. There's found small creatures that live there. And I know you might be saying, Roderick, why are you talking about this? We want to talk about some aliens. And again, I want to set this up for you. There's life form in the water. There's life forms way down there that we can't see, that is in harsh conditions that we as humans cannot even comprehend trying to live in, but they do. But the question is, and if you remember the interview that we did last week with Dr. Nolan, or not the interview, but we talked about it with Tucker Carlson, he talked about how octopuses, multiple octopuses, how about that, can possibly have the intelligence to become, using technology. So imagine after hundreds and hundreds of millions of years, what could be down there. And we're going to get into some of that in just a few moments. Now, what they've discovered there, they've already discovered some things. And this was from let me see here. That's the guy went down there in this Challenger, and I have his name here for you. But anyway, he went down there into this deep sea equipment. So they did send some people down to the bottom, and I think it was Jacques Picard. There we go. All right. And him and a U.S. Navy lieutenant went down to the bottom, and this guy was named Don Walsh. And they actually used some equipment, went to some parts of the bottom of that particular area. But once again, they didn't discover anything. But that ties us back to what we're going to be talking about here in a few segments here. And you look over to the left, you can follow along. We're going to get into about these UFOs in the particular coming from space. But let me point this last part out for you before we move on. They talk about the conditions. In most cases, we talk about the ocean conditions to be dark, okay, very cold. But they also now find out what's surprising, that there's hot water in the ocean. They call them hydrothermal vents that's through trenches. And these things can get up to 700 degrees. Now, don't ask me how something down there, water, hot water, can be moving through there. But that also ties us back into all of these particular stories of center Earth, life in between, the planet there, these caves, Antarctica, all these things that go all the way back to the ocean. All right, so let me take you now. Let's get this thing a little realer here. Let's get about the UFOs into space. Now, we know, and a lot of you may be expecting me to talk about some of the incidents. Yeah, we can talk about the Navy incidents and all the different things that have happened. But if you think about most of all of these UFO videos, the Tic Tac videos, the Nimitz video, all of these ones, these things are found over water. Now, I work with the MUFON organization, and about 2 months ago, they gave a report of UFO sightings here in the United States. And the top 3 states that had the most sightings was California, Florida, and Michigan. Now, that led me to believe at this point it has to be the water. They have to be around the water. And once we think about it, that most of all our sightings do come out of water. Now that changes everything. And now let me tie this in for you as I'm giving you all of these little key points, because we're going somewhere here, okay? I just want you to know we are going somewhere. The whole point I'm trying to make is we make so much havoc about extraterrestrials being all of these coming from space. And when we talk about all of the transmedium technology, where they can come between water, air, space, and all these things that we don't have a technology to do. Now, when you think about, again, when I pointed out that we're 73% water, now we start thinking about, is it a perfect place to hide? Is these aliens hiding among us? But the story is this, and as we're going to get into the best part of this, there's been other aquatic creatures that have been coming up from the ocean. There has been remnants of things that are saying, hey, listen, there's life forms in this oceans that have some type of human look, human characteristics. And okay, we can talk about mermaids all day long. But once again, I'm going to touch bases on, is there a coherent difference between the fact that we think aliens are living in the water as opposed to UFOs going into the water who's coming from the space? That could be 2 different phenomena. There could be totally 2 different things that we're not looking at. Okay, yeah, we got all the Catalina Islands. We got all the military reports of Tic Tacs and, again, down aircrafts. And I'm not trying to go there tonight because that's the fact. We know that there's UAPs flying around. We got all the government instances of that. I want to go a little step deeper because there's obviously a big secret, and we want to know why the big secret, that we don't explore the ocean. There's a reason we don't go down there looking for what we know is there. There is a big secret reason. Now, do I have all the answers for you? No, but we're going to talk about that tonight as we go further. But there is a big reason to why most of all the UFO sightings with the Navy, not the Air Force, with the Navies, are coming in and out the water. Okay. And so it's like we know where they are. We know where they are. But you don't hear that in the government. You don't hear that in the congressional hearings, that we're going to make some type of deep sea exploration team and let's go down there and find these aliens that we know is down there. We got USOs. Okay, we know what that means. Underwater submersible objects. We know that. We have Navy reports of looking at radar blimps and saying, hey, listen, something is flying by that we don't really know what it is. And absolutely, it comes out. I'm going to talk to you about a story. There was these Russian stories, and let's kind of get into that right now, and I'll kind of go into it now. There was a team of Russians that went into, and they called it the lake. Let me see here. I got my notes. Pactel incident. Anyway, so you probably know, and I'll get to it. But they have went into the ocean, and this is what they saw. They ran into these particular extraterrestrials on their expedition that was swimming in the ocean. And look at this, guys. They're not using scuba gear. They're not trying to have some type of mechanics that we have to take oxygen underneath the water. Supposedly, they have these particular types of whatever this thing is over their head, but this was a well-documented incident back in, I think, the early 19, no, let me shut this off for you. But this was an early documented incident. And now, it didn't turn out well for all of them because they did try the stupidest thing, I think, was to try to catch one of those extraterrestrials. And then they used some technology that ultimately landed some of these people, or 3 out of 7 died actually from this incident. And where I'm going with this once again is this is proof. Now, I can't tell you that these particular extraterrestrials are living in that particular environment, or they simply there and came from space. Now, once again, we got that. So I just want to point that out before we get into our detailed conversation with Billy, because I got a lot of questions for him to add some things on there as well. Now, one of the things that I want to point out to you as we get ready to get down to this is think about some of the questions that I'm going to pose to you tonight. All right, as we go down this particular journey, I want you to think about all of the news that you hear, all of the stories of extraterrestrials coming in and out our water, all of the Navy videos, you know, all of the underwater things that the government does, and we're trying to, all the technology. And then we're going to go down this path. Once again, I've said it before, we're going to go down a path about the life forms, okay? Because I'm telling you, that is a big difference. And I don't think a lot of people have enough conversations when we go down there. So, all right, so let's move into, again, a little theory of some of the underwater bases. And I'm going to give you some statistics about that. And one of the things that you hear about all the time is all the particular incidents. And I have a list of them here for you. You got the Nimitz. You got the report of the U.S. Omaha incident. Now, this is one of the Navy commanders. He talks about the UFOs, and I think it was more than a helicopter incident. We talk about some of the orbs recently that Jerry Campbell reported, of the orbs, fireballs following Navy ships and then disappearing into the oceans. We talk about now we can do contrast to the secret Navy submarine bases that they're building. But like I said, I think this is insignificant for us. Why do we want to care about the Navy? At least I don't, about them building an underwater base. And once again, all it tells me though is they're there. They know what's down there. They know what's in this water. But why is it we do not go down and explore the oceans, which is still be a lot easier than us spending money trying to get off the planet, going into space, going over to Mars? And that just tells me that they just might know. They don't really want to go, the government, the big secret keepers, once we go down that path for there. So a little bit, I'm gonna show you a couple of pictures here. And there was a video that surfaced not long ago about a scientific guy. And for a moment, I had to kind of do some back checking for it. And you've probably seen it on one of the documentaries where they was out in the oceans, and then they was pretty much something came across the screen and it slapped the front of the other submarine craft that they was in, and you can kind of see it. Now, that was supposedly been a real video and a real incident that spurred from some creatures that actually came up on the bank in South Africa, which sent this team over there to explore, and they actually saw this particular creature in the water. So I'm going to show you some video clips of that. But one of the things that came behind that was the South African government immediately shut down all underwater mining and all that after this surface, as though, once again, they were surprised that, hey, these guys discovered something down there. Now, I can go back into all of the old conspiracy of Plum Island. Have you guys heard of that? And this is where there's supposed to have been all of this test subjects and things that are going on, and they made movies about it, and you get all these weird creatures, and supposedly they are washing up on the beach. And this is where some of this particular pictures pop up, where you get these mystery animals and things like that. This came up on the beach. But I can't explain a woman finding this particular picture. This is true and real. And this showed up on the beach to where, look at this thing. Now, this could be over time, something that's making a big change. And one of the things about it is these creatures exist in our oceans. And now some of these things are taking on some real human forms, like this particular creature here. And then like what we're getting ready to get into, that I want to show you a couple of videos that I think is going to, I don't know if they're totally, and maybe the audience can find out. I just found them and I thought it was pretty weird to see. So let me kind of show you this particular first clipping of this particular video here. Now, this is supposedly been some sea creature. Now, for a moment, I said, okay, wait a minute. This is probably some people that have some great skills when it comes down to making some fake items, until I started looking closer at the video. And now we see this thing actually begin to breathe at some point. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Now maybe they're practicing this. maybe they're not. So maybe some of you saw this particular video or not, but I'm gonna show you the final video of it. And the reason I'm showing it is, and I'm gonna tie it into some other stuff that people found on our oceans that make you understand, wait a minute, is this something that's really happening? And I don't really have enough information that I want to go into the mermaid side of things, because again, this is one of those mystical creatures that's out there. But then there's a lot of people that have had video, they have posted video on YouTube of encounters, true mermaids encounters, which will tie back into this next segment that we're talking about with this video with the people that was exploring the ocean. So you definitely want to check that out pretty much. So basically what I'm doing, just let you know, is setting it all up to take you in a whole different direction. I know, again, most people came here tonight and say, listen, we want to talk about some of this military stuff. No, I think we passed that point. Really, we are past the point about military bases underwater. Now we can get into extraterrestrial and alien bases, absolutely. But then there's other life forms there. And I want to make sure that we have a distinct idea that there's possibility that there's ancient life forms there, as opposed to extraterrestrials visiting us, living and hiding there, that they may not be aliens. What do we call them? And we'll get into that moment, because I think that's something that all of us should be exploring, because it's just a pretty interesting topic to be getting in with it from there. So let's get into the aquatic life forms, okay? And let's get into this particular video clip of these people that was doing an exploration. So I want to show it to you first. But first, let me just tell you, when it comes down to the ocean, this is one of the main things that we think is the most feared creature out there in the ocean, will be a shark, okay? We see this all the time, okay? We see great white shark movies, Jaws and all that. But now we begin to think, oh, wait a minute, there's something else there. Especially when it comes down to all of the stories that we're hearing, that we now have aliens and UAPs and all of these things that are in our oceans, and to lead us to the fact that saying, okay, wait a minute, there's a possibility, once again, that the extraterrestrials is not the only thing floating around down there that's alive, that looks like a human, that has possibly technology. And of course, once again, we are not sure what's down there, because we have never been and explored only 5% of our oceans. And yet we spend so much time with all of our military and everything we have to take us off the planet. All right, so I just kind of set that up. And the reason I did that, just to throw some facts out there, and we're going to bring Billy into this conversation just a moment now. And the whole point is to do a deep dive into the significance of both of these. And I just want to kind of throw it out there. The ocean is deep. So you seen that up there about the Mariana Trench. Yeah, we know UFOs are coming from space. I didn't have to inundate y'all with all of the stories about that. Tic Tac videos, you've seen all of that, and I think it's got to be a little more deeper scenario. Yeah, we know we got underwater bases for our military. It makes sense. Why not? We got submarines sitting out there all over the place, floating around with nuclear powered weapons. So that is nothing new to any of us. What we don't know is further down in that ocean, who else is down there? Who else is living there? Who else got bases there? And then on the flip side of that, once again, what are we going to do? So I'm going to, at this point, bring Billy into the conversation, because again, this is where it's going to get deep. This is where the conversation gets real once we get into this. And all the stuff that I said, you can kind of like, oh, okay, now let's get into some of the real conversations with that. Billy, glad to have you back. And I just kind of threw some of that stuff out there, because I got more questions for you, which I think is going to inundate the audience more anyway, okay? And jabbering on for the first 30 minutes, setting that up, was intentional, because I wanted to get people to get a different viewpoint past the narrative of, okay, what is there? Who's hiding? Not so much who's hiding, but okay, we got extraterrestrials coming in and out this water. We know this. This is old news, okay? We know that there's places that we can't see and get down to. So why wouldn't their higher intelligence know that is the perfect place to hide? Now, I use the word hide, Billy, but maybe they're not hiding. Who could have been there all of this time from that? And so I'll let you kind of open it up with more of what I call the ancient aquatic civilizations. And you and I talked about that a little bit, of maybe some life forms heading that way. So just take us into that.
Well, there's quite a few I would say, historical, handed down verbal accounts of these beings being aquatic. And it's really interesting that if you look into the ancient Sumerian tablets, you find that some of these quote unquote gods had aquatic bodies. So they had the head of a man, but the body of a fish. The Dogon tribe out of Mali, Africa, they were the original inhabitants of the land of Kem before it was called Egypt, pre-dynastic era, and then eventually were forced out, but ended up in Mali, Africa. They still kept all of their historical information, all of their the things that they were taught by the Nomo. They call them the Nomo, N-O-M-M-O. And the Nomo basically claimed to hail from Sirius B, which is a star system, a trinary star system, light years away. And so according to their ancestors and their handed down verbal history, which they still keep intact today, the Nomo came from Sirius B, which is light years away. Think about that. So we're talking about traveling at least at a percentage of the speed of light, or maybe traveling through a portal or a wormhole to get here. But they brought them a significant amount of wisdom and knowledge, but they were aquatic beings, according to the Dogon. They had the ability to live in water. They were aquatic. They actually depicted them as having bodies of fish, a fish body, which is pretty interesting. And so these beings gave them information, celestial information on our solar system. They taught them the shapes, the sizes, and even the colors of all the planets in our solar system long before we even became what we call an advanced civilization. They even knew the location or know the location of Sirius B and the trinary star system precise orbit long before we, as what quote unquote modern civilized people, were able to develop technology to even detect a failed star like Sirius B, which is a white dwarf. We can't see with the naked eye. And then to even know the orbital period and the orbital cycle and the orbital momentum. They knew all of this, and they still know it all. They know all the planetary alignments. I mean, the amount of information and wisdom they have, the celestial information that they have, is immense. And they got it all from these fish people that live in the water. Another thing is, if you look into the Sumerian tablets, you find Poseidon. Now, Poseidon is the other name for who? One of the Sumerian gods, right? So you have the Sumerian god Enki and Enlil, and they're brothers. But Enki and Enlil have many names in different cultures. Depending on which culture you're addressing them in, they have different names. And what's interesting is that Enlil was actually Poseidon. And so he had, the power over water. And he had the ability to build a kingdom in the Apsu, which was this water kingdom. So, I mean, and the list goes on and on. If you want to go into the 1700s or 1800s, look into what we call more modern times, right? Just look at, for example, I would say, well, let's look at before that, Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus documented, this is a pretty interesting thing, on at 10 p.m. on October 11th, 1492, Christopher Columbus claims to have seen a glimmer in the distance as he stood on the deck of the Santa Maria. He was saying it was a faraway flash of an object that came up out of the ocean. Now, you got to remember, back in those times, there were no lights. There's no light pollution. There's no electricity, no light bulbs, definitely no airplanes or anything else, no drones. So when a captain of a ship makes a claim like this and writes it in his actual captain's log, you have to think it's as close to the truth as possible, or an accurate description or depiction of what he saw as possible. So this is pretty interesting to see a UFO, a USO, come straight up out of the ocean in front of the Santa Maria and fly up into the sky and then eventually disappear from sight. So maybe it went into space. So it begs to ask the question, are these beings, did they come here in ancient times and create a breakaway civilization on Earth? Maybe creating some type of an offspring here that still exists today and it has still advanced levels of technology? Or could it be a combination of extraterrestrials that came here and created a breakaway civilization underwater? And there also were still some marine life that had developed the ability to become what we would think to be more sentient and start to develop, human-like characteristics, but remain underwater. I think it's probably a combination of both. This is a lot of, it's a lot of information to swallow all at once.
One of the things we're going to talk about, I'm going to show this little clip about the expedition crew and how whatever it was hit their vehicle while they was underwater. And let me kind of play that a little bit here. We're
with former NOAA biologist Dr. Paul Robertson and joined by Dr. Torsten Smith.
Now, one of the things that they did in this, and I got another close-up clip, Billy, is supposedly it all started, again, and I mentioned it before you came back, was that there was some type of creature washed up in South Africa. These guys went over there doing an exploration, and all of a sudden, this is something that popped up across, and the hand of this thing had 5 fingers, but webbed as though it lived in the water. And they was pretty shocked. And so I checked it out. Some people say, oh, no, it's from a document, but this was actually a true story. And the government got behind it and shut them people down so fast after that. So, and I'm going to show this clip again in a little more closer fashion, and we'll get into that. Then I have a big question for you just a second. Right there, and I just did it real quick. I want y'all so you'll know the emphasis, and I'm going to show it again. And if you look again, you're going to see not only the hand, but whatever this thing swam away, that was human looked like, okay? It looked like a human. Let's go right here. So, Billy, when you were talking, And it sounds like we almost have several civilizations here. We have the water, which could be a whole totally different. We know it's an ecosystem. It has its own life. But it's almost like there's beings that are aquatic life forms that now could possibly still be there after all this time. Because obviously, most of them can't live above the surface because they don't develop and evolve that they need water and oxygen coming through, however that works.
Yeah.
Just as much as we up here, we can't live there. Okay. And then we're not going to go what's in the earth as well. So how is all this possible in one realm that we have all of this particular possibility that there's life within our oceans, which we don't really focus on that as humans because we just think we're all that exists. And now we got life coming away from the planet. What is really happening? And what is the big secret of all of this to where we don't connect all the dots at this time?
Well, they've done a great job of suppressing information to the point where you hear little tidbits here and there, but we can't hear enough to put it all to put all the pieces together. So what's happened is the information is so disjointed, we can't correlate everything and come up with a big picture and see what's really going on. They've done a phenomenal job. They, meaning of course the military industrial complex, the governments of the world. I mean, all those elite rulers have done a phenomenal job protecting and keeping this secret. And the reason why is because once we discover that we're the new kids on the block, that we just arrived here amongst a vast array of other sentient life forms, then we're going to start asking a lot of questions. And specifically, we're going to want to know, what can we do to communicate with these beings, to find out what types of technology they're using and why we don't have access to that technology. Also, are you taking advantage of any of these creatures or beings, these advanced peoples, whatever they may be, in any kind of way? Are you damaging? Are you trying to eliminate them or erase them, eradicate them? Is it a genocide going on? All these things become a lot of big questions that they don't want to have to answer. It's best to keep us dumbed down, stupid, fighting each other, and worrying about how we're going to make our next bill payment. And as long as they can keep us doing that, they got us exactly where they want us. And then they can continue to hoard all the real knowledge and convert that knowledge into power.
Wow. You know, and that goes back to, and actually you sent me that video. So what do you think about that one when you saw it?
Oh, that video shocked me. Of course, we can't play the full clip because we can't lose the monetization.
That's why I like clip real fast. Clip real fast.
Yeah. The reason why he's clipping it real fast for all you guys out there who's watching is because obviously you don't want to have to, there's a copyright. That's an actual real copywritten video. It's original, authentic. It's been verified. It's something that really happened. They went down into the deep sea, deep ocean, and this thing came up to the submersible, came right up to the window, put its hand on it, and actually showed its face for a second before it swam off at an incredible speed. And it looks humanoid. In other words, it's a bilateral, bipedal type of a look. In other words, it looks like it's got legs and arms, and even though the feet and hands are webbed, it's got a head that's similar to a human head and a body that's kind of similar to a human torso. Interesting, you know? And so it scared the heck out of these oceanographers and these geologists and everybody else that were on the inside of the submersible. And they were like, what in the world did we just see? And I'm glad they caught that because it shows us that there's something down there. There's probably an entire civilization down there that's living right amongst us. And this earth is so huge. People don't really understand, I don't think, how large this planet really is. I mean, I've been on flights that last for 30 hours. You know what I'm saying? So just think about that. I've been on a 30-hour flight before. And that was only to go halfway around the planet. And so we're talking about a huge planet, and human beings, as we know it, only occupy the surface. So we're like little tiny dots on the surface of this huge, massive object. And as you go down many layers, you have nothing but all different types of possibilities for all sorts of life, exotic life, things we would consider to be exotic to live. And then you add the oceans to it. I mean, in the Mariana Trench, you can put, Mount Everest in there and still have hundreds of feet left over. That's how big that trench is.
Yeah.
So we don't even begin to understand what's down there.
And I think people don't realize that, and they may, that really it is just something that as humans or our government, big secret keepers, I call them, really just kind of stay away from. Yeah. And they don't put money behind some of these scientific expeditions. They don't do that like they do with everything else. But yet, I think they all have a clue that the UAPs, the people from outer space, hide in those oceans. But I think there's something else there that they know, because again, once it's the life forms, it's life forms. And I think it is a huge disconnect from people think that it's just where the aliens are hiding versus are there other life forms that we think is the aliens, but could be ancient life forms that actually live there, been there. And now we got three sectors here. We got us, them, and the people coming from somewhere else
Right.
All of us looking at this big planet in which, once again, we only explore 5% of our oceans, and we don't even have nothing technology-wise except for a few things that can even go down there and survive the pressure of the ocean. So my next point to this, Billy, for you is to let's tie into the importance of where people need to understand that this picture is getting bigger by the day, right? Okay, yeah, I investigate UFOs, and that's obviously sometimes get really boring looking at photos. All right, okay, I've seen a ton of videos. Oh, I know what that is. That's a drone. But then you start thinking, all right, who's occupying them? Okay, we're going there. All right, now we know there's some things coming out of space, and now we have all of this technology. And so my ultimate question, once again, is, are we afraid to truly go down there? Is something stopping us from going down there, you think? Why don't we go?
Well, you know, first of all, it takes a lot of money and funding to get these private projects to go down into the deep and the super deep. And so there's not been a big push for this by the people that have the money and the power to allow these things to happen, by the independent researchers at universities and so forth, because these people at the top, they know exactly what's down there already. And they don't want independent people discovering these things. I remember when the Baltic Sea anomaly was discovered.
Yep.
This object, which looks like, the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, in the bottom of the Baltic Sea. You can see the 1 mile skid mark until it hit where it hit the bottom of the seabed and it came to a complete stop. And I was actually in a documentary about this object. And right away after these divers from the a ship that was looking for different treasures, they hunt for treasures in the seas and the oceans. They spent a little bit of time exploring the Baltic Sea anomaly and came back with a lot of information and evidence about this thing. A lot of great images and photos as well. And within 2 weeks, NASA contacted them and then gave them a gag order. All right. Gave them an actual gag order, which they followed for a little while. And then eventually the captain of the ship was like, why am I following a NASA gag order? He said to himself, like, why would I, what can they do to me? So he said, forget this. And they went back for a second trip. They raised some more money, went back again and got a piece of this actual object down there for study and testing, and got some more incredible images. Actually, 2 giant vessels down there at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. And so they just ignored the gag order. It's like, what are they going to do? I mean, really, he came to that assumption, and actually they did nothing. There was nothing they actually could do. And I think it's better that he did go public with it, because if they would have done something to him, everybody would have known where to point the finger to anyway. But his team has gone back and researched this thing extensively, and this object is it's not a natural formed rock. It's an actual piece of technology, most likely some type of ship. We don't know if it's a ship that maybe flies under the ocean or goes into space, or is it something that came from space to under the ocean, or something that was blown or had a battle above Earth and then crashed into the ocean? We don't know. But there's just so much down there that once we start exploring, all these things come to light. And when they come to light, it exposes the fact that the religious systems that we have in place, they're going to be questioned and torn down. The financial systems are going to be questioned and torn down. The technology systems in place, questioned and torn down. Why? Because people are inquisitive. And once we start finding that we just arrived here as new species, basically 200,000 years ago, and there's more advanced civilizations that have existed long before we were even alive, before we took our first breath, we're going to realize that everything that we thought in terms of our belief system is nothing but a fabricated lie. And the religious system is a multi-trillion-dollar control system. That's gone. The political system is a multi-trillion-dollar control system. That's gone. The military-industrial complex, multi-trillion-dollar control system. That's gone. And so what they like to do is just keep us preoccupied with each other, worrying about the color of our skin, worrying about how we can pay our bills and feed our children. And then they love to poison us and put a lot of toxins into us so that we can't even think straight. And that's the objective, in order to keep us away from one of the biggest secrets that on this planet, which is what is under the water.
Man, and you know what? I had an opportunity while you was talking. I was trying to look through my phone. I actually had a 2-hour, 3-hour phone call with one of the guys from that Ocean X team, one of the head explorers, and he actually was on Clubhouse. He came into one of my rooms, and then we ended up talking late at night. And I actually got his cell phone, and we were supposed to do a interview. So we might do that and bring him on here, because he has a lot to say. And he was going down that avenue where they couldn't figure out why they had the restraints that they had. And he was like, wait a minute, the ocean is open to everybody. We wasn't in nobody's jurisdiction, so they couldn't tell us what to do. And he said it was so much red tape and people coming after that anomaly that it was just crazy. And but just like again though, with the guys that we just showed that handprint, The government stepped right in from them and shut every drilling and everything down from those areas. And once again, it's the big secret, what's in our waters. And like I said, I've always thought about that, Billy, because, again, we talk about extraterrestrials, and we know they're coming in and out of the water. They got transmedium technology. We just don't have that. Okay. But you asked the question of why, what's the big secret? What are they hiding? So let's go back to something that just popped into my head when it comes down to, so why do we have these stories of mermaids? Okay. What do you know about that? How mystical is this? And how does that story play with the history when it comes down to the water stories is what I'm going to call it.
Well, the mermaids link back to what I was talking about earlier. They link back to these mermen, these Nomo beings. It was not only the Dogon tribe that had mentioned these, but also the Zulu tribe had also mentioned these beings. So we're talking about two African tribes that came in contact with these mermen, these men that had the capability of being transmedium. They can be up here with us in the atmosphere, but they had to wear special suits. But primarily, they like to stay in the water. And so the whole mythology of mermaids came from these ancient stories, handed down verbal histories from the Dogon tribe and the Zulu tribe out of Africa, which is incredible. And so much later on, as you know, mythology turns into fairy tales, and then we're taught that these are all just mystical and stories that didn't really happen. But in true reality, in all myths, there's also a lot of truth. But it just takes, how close can you get to the actual truth? You have to really dig deep and go into the ancient tablets and ancient texts, and then you find out the source of mermaids.
And you hitting it, and it still sends me into this whole thought process is, how have all this been forgotten? How then what makes it forbidden knowledge these days, right? And then at the same time, we still get little pictures though. There was a video I saw that they actually had, and it was a pretty clean video with something sitting on the beach, a rock. They thought it was a walrus or something, and then it jumped into the water. And then I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let me look at it again and again and again. We do this. So just like the UFOs though, just like extraterrestrials who seem to have some type of behind the scene plan that they don't want us to know they're there. Do we think these aquatic life forms are running down that same parallel where they just feel that we can't handle the fact that there's something beneath this water? Because it appears that if anything with history, why don't they just walk up on out of the water and show themselves? Just the same thing as we want these extraterrestrials, just land a plane and get out and say, hi, I'm Roderick Martin from Jumbo State of Texas. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, if they have the slightest bit of intelligence, and they have the capability of at least observing what we've done in the oceans with these submarines and these nukes and these intercontinental ballistic missiles that we can shoot from nukes, from these marine vessels that have the capability of striking any planet, any continent on the planet, as well as even sending out strikes against nukes. All the nuclear testing that we've done in the oceans and the waters, all the bombs we've tested inside of the waters and oceans. We've done sonic testing, which has destroyed the sonic hearing of life under the oceans, like whales and killer whales and dolphins. We've really damaged a lot of them with these different types of sonic weapons that we've tested. We've done so much damage. And then, of course, all the pollution. I think if they had the slightest bit of intelligence, they'll realize coming up and trying to talk to us is probably not a good idea, because they'll probably be killed or put into some type of a laboratory or even worse. So I think they think it's probably best for them to stay where they're at, maintain their civilization the way that they maintain it. If they're the ones that can come and go, continue to come and go unannounced, and just do what they do versus trying to communicate. I mean, I think it's the same way with just even standard UFOs. A lot of people say, well, why don't they just land? And if you land a UFO at the White House, you'll be struck with so many weapons within the first few seconds. What you landed in won't even exist anymore. Neither will you. And they know this. I mean, we're a very volatile, hostile species. And when I say we, I don't mean the general population, the 8 billion of us. Right. It's really only a small amount of people that make these crazy decisions, and we allow them to do it. So in a weird kind of way, we're in collusion with these psychopaths because we sit back and be quiet or participate in their actions, either by paying our taxes or by joining their militaries or their forces or whatever they are, or just not saying anything, not speaking out. And so because of that, we are in collusion. But the ultimate decision comes from this very small group of psychopaths that want to attack and destroy and steal everything that comes to this planet. They want to knock these UFOs out of the sky and steal their technology. They'd like to attack these USOs and try to figure out how they work so they can incorporate that USO technology into Navy technology, which I'm sure they've already been working on. It's all about how can we steal the tech and weaponize it? How can we steal the tech and monetize it? And this is all what their whole agenda is all about. It has nothing to do with finding out how to free humanity and free mankind from its bonded chains of hard labor. It's all about how can we keep our boot on their neck and gain more power over them as well.
You know, you said it right there. You know, I tease all the time, and people sometimes laugh and like, "Oh, Roderick, what you talking about?" And you know, because there's this faction of people who feel that even from the extraterrestrials' perspective, they're going to come and save the world. They're going to come and rescue the planet, or they're already here trying to rescue the planet. And I'm saying, wait a minute, there was probably an expedition that did show up to save the planet. And I've used this example 100 times, and no different than, yeah, we all as audience is sitting on the board of Exxon, and we all into the oil trade. We billionaires. ET come from space. He's coming to save the planet, to get us off of oil, talking about saving climate or whatever. He walks in that room. Here is the recipe for free energy, everyone. How long before we all be so happy and then everybody look at each other and say he can't come out of there alive? He cannot, you know what I mean? He's not coming out of there alive. Right. And then what do you think the next crew that get the message that these dummies on planet Earth killed the last ambassador trying to save Earth? You know what I'm saying? There's nobody else coming, guys. They ain't sending nobody else. Who's going to sign up for that mission with the technology and higher intelligence to come here? So, and it's no different than this picture right here. Let me bring it up. These Russians saw this in the water. This does not look like, okay, now all of a sudden they wearing this type of outfit. So obviously I would assume this is extraterrestrial from somewhere else because it don't have the fish features, I would assume, right? But here's the deal. They tried to capture one of these fools. They tried to throw the net over this, and then they get hit with some sonic boom, blast them all up out of the water where they decompressed too soon because you have to, you know, the scuba diving gear. Yep. And 3 or 4 of them died. The other 4 had severe critical injuries because once again, now think about the next time that group of aliens or whatever they were, aquatic life forms, run across another group of humans down there. What do you think they're going to do now, right? So it's like we're asking for this thing, but at the end of the day, it's just not happening. And I think it's the same for everyone else. And so you hit it on a bud, man. And it's like, listen, they know we some crazy people here.
So, yeah, they know. Listen, when they fly by this planet or they swim by, they say, man, this is, you know, Earth is a ghetto. I mean, they know this planet is an absolute ghetto. We as a human being on this planet, we have a lot of growing up to do, man. A lot of growing up to do. I mean, we still killing each other over a chicken sandwich, you know. I mean, just dumb stuff. And we're getting better consciously, but we still got a long way to go. And anybody who thinks it's going to happen tomorrow is kidding themselves. There's a lot of work to do here consciously, psychologically. Mental health is a real problem on this planet. And so there's a lot of work. We have a lot of work cut out for us to help educate and help these people find a way to heal themselves, not take medication, but find a way to really come out of the stupor that we've been put into from all the negative programming and toxins and everything else. And then, of course, all the suppression doesn't help, because once you got somebody, you know, bent over the table, and then you got all the suppression and all this wool over their eyes, they can't even see straight. It's a perfect combination for deception, and it creates ignorance, and that ignorance then eventually turns into anger, and anger turns into hate. This is a poisonous, toxic combination that they discovered works to keep us so low and in such a low vibration, while they, you know, explore the oceans possibly without us, possibly even trying to make communication, or maybe even out into space. We don't know what they're up to. They're up to so many sneaky, what they call black projects, using our money to do it. You know, so it's just really unfortunate. But eventually, we will realize what's happening to us, and we will eventually take back control of this planet.
That's one of the things I tell people. I said we need to start this movement, you know, hashtag UFO taxes, right? Because if you don't know where the money is going, it is definitely, and if you start, hey, I want to know where the money is going, we might get a few answers from the big secret keepers, which is the government, you know. But I got a question, and you said something, and I don't want to take us off the box a little bit, but when it comes down to all of this and they and us not really understanding, personally for me, I feel that there is a disconnect, especially when it comes down to our community, okay, being, you know, I always say your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. It's time to think why. That's my tagline for the community. And I think a lot of people are like that. I mean, they just can't believe what they see because their mind is too closed, or sleep, or whatever we want to call it, to understand that there's something different. And my thing is, why is that when it comes down to all of this in our community? And I know you do a good job, and I'm just taking us off just a little bit, but I'll get us back on the detour here. But you do a lot of educating everyone. And again, I'm not segmenting the audience here. Of course, we know we got a diversified group here, but my personal experience as being an African-American, that a lot of these conversations is really tough and hard, even to turn around and tell somebody, hey, there's something else living in our water. Okay. Right. Yeah. Oh, by the way, there's something else coming from over there hiding in the water. oh, by the way, there's something that could possibly come through these walls when it gets ready. We just can't see it in the dimension that it is. But yet we believe in fairy tales of Casper the Friendly Ghost, which is stuff that I watch. We believe in mermaids. You know, we got cartoons. We got all of this. And it's like they make these things up for us to see and buy, and not buy into, but to buy. Then all of a sudden on the other side, you can sit down and talk to somebody and say, hey, man, there is some life forms coming out. Oh, man, I don't believe that. That ain't nothing else out there. You can't even breathe down there. You think? But that don't mean what's living there can't breathe there. You know, what is the disconnect? And I can go into religion if we wanted to, but why is it that there is a disconnect, even from communities to communities, when it comes down to this whole phenomenon?
Well, there's a couple things. First, I want to correct myself from something I said earlier. I think I said that Enlil was Poseidon. I meant to say Enki. Enki is known as Poseidon from the
That was their father, right?
Yeah, Enki is the brother of Enlil.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I knew, but I had a little brain twitch there. It's actually Enki, Enki, who actually the earth is named after him. That was the Sumerian god known as Poseidon. But anyway, back to what you were just saying. I just want to make that correction. But back to what you're saying. So basically, you have to understand what they've done is a great job of creating a systemized, institutionalized matrix on this planet. And so this matrix has us set up from birth. And the first thing they realize is from the age of birth until 7 years old. So from day 0 to year 7, they know that they have that opportunity to take advantage of programming us. And we know that from neuroscience, and this is something I studied when I was taking classes at MIT for applied neuroscience. In that first 7 years, whatever comes in creates the person that you're going to be for the majority of your life. And once that 7 years of information is locked in, it's very, very difficult to change or alter that person's belief system, personality, even their perspective on things. And so imagine you're born into the civilization, and then right away what happens, you're given a name, a race, and a religion, and now you got to spend the rest of your life defending a false identity. Then on top of that, you have all the programming coming in from TV. All right, now we think that these cartoons are so safe and so, rated G, but in reality, even in the cartoons, there's subliminal messages and a lot of incredible things that people never thought they'd even understand to see in a cartoon. I used to post these on Forbidden Knowledge all the time. A lot of sexual innuendos, a lot of very tricky ways of introducing ways to be, to give deception, tell lies, sneaky, all these things, rob people, and how to be a scammer, all built into the cartoons. And so you have all this stuff going on. Then you have the institution we call the school system, which is set up like a prison system, and it robs you of all your creativity. It takes away and takes away all your ability to think for yourself and ask questions. And all of a sudden, it puts you in this, puts a box around your brain, and in that box is all you have. You're completely constrained. Your hands are tied behind your back. You can't do anything. And so between all of that first 7 years, we're putting ourselves in a position where we become actually prisoners on this planet of our own minds. And then not only are we the prisoners, we're also the prison guards. So as soon as someone tries to become independent, tries to ask questions, try to look at it alternative views, the others who were prisoners, they turn into prison guards and try to squash them. So we become our own worst enemies.
And it backs back down to when we get back into the aquatic ancient civilizations, spacecraft. I mean, it's almost these things are sitting right in front of us. We got pyramids sitting there that been here for a very long time and been made by things or ways that we still don't have equipment to move rocks that big, but yet nobody really wants to explore. Not saying nobody, but the masses is not trying to go, really, let's just get curious. What is that? Why are they here? Oh, what happened to a whole civilization that just disappeared? They just left, and they said, okay, we're done with this thing. Let's just get out of here. What did they know? We don't know. And then, of course, you talk about Enki and Enlil. We talk about, the story with Noah and how the great floods. And of course, they created this particular ark to save us. And I still wish they would have left one of those mosquitoes behind. Just one, right? Just out of all the stuff y'all want to bring it to, just leave one of them dang old mosquitoes behind, but they don't look at it that way, But all right, so you said it, the programming. And although now, do you feel that the government is now trying to desensitize or deprogram us slightly, since now they're trying to talk about UAPs? They want to talk about some of this stuff a little bit. Yeah, we're hearing about aquatic things are popping up. It's like, now we got technology and cameras everywhere. But the whole point is somebody's behind the scene with the strings, as the puppet masters are saying, now it's time for us to show these people a little more information. And why is that now? And, is there something happening and coming?
Well, they have fought every war they can possibly fight on this planet, pretty much. They've gone through every continent, every country where they want to bring democracy. So everywhere that we have brought democracy, it's nothing but a pile of dust rubble now. And so they pretty much destroyed everything, wiped everyone out, and the objective of bringing democracy, which really what meant translates into we need to create a war so that we can generate war revenues, which create billions of dollars in money for us. And so now that that's drying up, the next big money move is space. It's the next big thing. So you create the Space Force. Now, instead of sneaking and stealing the money from the American public, you can actually say, no, we're taking it because we have to put it towards these space programs. We can't tell you exactly what we're doing, but that's where it's going now. So don't ask us any more questions about where the money. Now you know where it's going. It's going to the Space Force. And now they're going to take trillions of dollars and move that into these black budget space programs. They're not really black budget. What they are is they're contracted out to private corporations to build different types of techs and weapons that could potentially be used in space. But here's a caveat to that. There's a couple of tricks on how to make a lot of money doing this, and this is why they control the narrative.
Okay.
The first thing is, we're going to create this this new type of a spaceship, and we're going to need to start off with $15 billion. So this contract gets approved by the Pentagon for some private Lockheed or somebody else. They start creating and working. This is what they do. This is with the actual warships. This is what they do. The warships and also the fighter jets. So they'll create this spaceship, a mock-up of it. It'll never really fly. And then every few years they'll come back and say, we didn't quite get it right this time. Send us another 20 billion. We might be able to get this thing working in another 3 years. They get to 20 more billion. Another 3 years go by. You know what? We just need another 15, 20 billion. It might just work this time. And now trust me, the people that approve these contracts, they know exactly what's going on because they're getting a little bit of juicy juice under the table for these stamps.
You know they are. Yeah.
And so this is what's happened. So they've got to control narrative for that type of thing. The second reason is because since everybody has technology now, I mean, universities in third world countries are raising money and putting satellites up, and like India did. India sent a whole satellite to Mars for $3 million. That's peanuts. But NASA spends $100 billion to do the same exact thing. So they're going, oh man, we got to take control of this narrative because now anybody can get into space, anybody can explore, anybody can find out what's in the ocean, anybody can see what's in our skies. Technology is becoming too vast and too easy to access and too cheap for anyone to get their hands on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to control the narrative. First thing we're going to do, we're going to strip away the name, the title, or the acronym UFO. We're going to strip that away because that has a bad connotation to it. So let's strip that away. Now to make it an official, if you're talking serious about these objects, these anomalies, you got to say UAP. If you don't say UAP, that means it's woo-woo. It's just swamp dust and all this kind of balloons, and all this kind of stuff. But if you say UAP, now you got our attention. Now, so they're controlling the narrative by giving it its official name, its title. And now what they want to do is they want to direct the conversation. These things are dangerous. These things are a threat to military. These things are a threat to our nukes. These things are a threat to us and blah, blah, blah. So they can build up the anxiety and the fear. Now they're going to build that up. And then one day when they need $1 trillion or whatever they want to do, they can just snatch and say, hey, we need to build a defense against these UAPs. Or maybe they'll take one that we developed, like a TR-3B, our own technology, call it a UAP, and have it shoot at one of our own ships, like they lied about the Gulf of Tonkin incident to create the Vietnamese War, which cost the lives of millions of people, but the people in the suits made billions of dollars. So maybe they'll make a fake war using our own technology. But again, you can't do that unless you control the narrative. So let's start telling them about, oh yeah, these things are real. They do exist. We don't know what they are. They move really fast, but they're UAPs, and we're creating a task force. We have to create this space force now. Oh, now next thing you know, we got to create space weapons. And then next thing you know, oh man, one of these things shot at us. Now we gotta go. We gotta bulk up. We gotta spend a few trillion now to get ready for a potential invasion. It's all a money-making scheme for these people.
And I'm with you 100%. I did a little investigation one day. I was just talking about following the money for space, right? And then I kind of ran across, and people can do this themselves, Morgan Stanley, which, investment bankers, telling their whole organization, this was about a year ago, the new space economy. And it's still on their website now. I went on and pulled it up. And they're talking about how it is a $300 billion thing. And then in 2040, it's going to be $1 trillion industry, the space industry. Yes. And you're thinking about, it's like, how are they putting the money in there? Well, they're going to do that. So they talking about satellite. They're talking about that's one of the new driver, deep space explorations. So they're telling their investors, invest in companies that's doing that. So hand in hand everybody else, right? And lunar landing. So they're saying these companies are focused on the Earth, Moon, which I don't think they're going to be going there, right? Earth observations, asteroid mining. This is supposed to be something huge that's coming up. And space debris. So obviously we got enough stuff floating around that they need to put money, and people can start a space debris company. Space tourism. we already seeing them now building these zero gravity airplanes and testing this stuff. And now pretty soon you see pictures of hotels that's in space, you know, that's coming out. And so all of these things is kind of like, okay, wait a minute. So goes back to what you said. All right, they're putting the narrative out there that we need to fear something that's been around eons of years and ain't bothered us yet. You're right, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We know they're there. They came out of the water, did nothing. Oh,
Right.
we know they've been flying around. They've been flying around because we got ancient pyramids drawing sculptures of aircrafts back in the day, right?
Yep.
Okay, we got all of this stuff. Ain't nothing happened in billions of light years,
Right.
but yet now we got a time like we got to protect ourselves. There's something up there, and we got to do this, and all of this is just funneling the money. And they don't ran out of land to buy it. So space is wide open.
Yeah.
Right. And so whoever get to Mars first is going to claim that they own it all. You know,
Yep.
we've seen the movies. What's that Dennis Quaid movie or whatever it was, Arnold Schwarzenegger played in. They did
Yeah. Total Recall.
Total Recall, and they charging for oxygen, and just like now they found a way. But then what happened? There was some alien thing in the mountains that created free oxygen that the alien technology already had. But no, they wanted to protect that like the biggest secret of all day long. So yeah, so it's like the stuff just keep on coming. So where do we go as a community and civilizations? How do we outside of listening to knowledge from you and people like you, and then of course I kind of do more of I don't do more of the nuts and bolts. I just kind of get people to think. I kind of add this other humor to it because we just take this thing so serious these days. You know, I mean, people just, and although it is some cases some serious matter, where do people go from here if we begin to now accustom ourselves? Because one of the things I tell people all the time, Billy, and I said, well, I wanted to start this telescope nonprofit group, and I wanted to give telescopes, especially in underprivileged communities, not to be tomorrow's astronauts, because pretty soon you don't need to be an astronaut to go in space. I mean, you can just like we get on a bus, you're gonna be able to do that. But to awaken the children's possibility to something else is out there, because I think that there's these parents who closes off this phenomenon. Okay, they close off that don't, and for whether religious lenses or whatever reasons they want to put a cultural lens on it. But our children of tomorrow, this is going to be the norm. Everything is moving space. So what is the problem with some of these parents cutting off the kids mentally from preparing them for the future, which is going to be their normal, where you're going to have a group of civilization that can't even function because they've been, like you said, bred since 7, the whole, not bred, but you know what I mean, the whole thing, the design to not comprehend things are bigger than just this planet, right?
Yeah.
How do we, if anybody was listening, where should they start? How can they begin the process of saying, wait a minute, I need to introduce the next generation to all of this? How do they do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. And one of the things that I've really targeted my entire company is I'm primarily going after younger people, the younger generation. Now, I do have a vast array of different ages of people that follow my information, but my primary target is the younger generation. That's why I say things the way I say them. That's why I use a lot of shock factor. And that's why I do the music and everything else. The younger generation is who I'm interested in, because that is literally the future, right? And so, I mean, I've already lived half my lifespan. I'm on the backside of living right now in this third density. And a lot of the people that have been following this movement and being involved in this community for some time are also getting either at the backside of this whole life in this dimension or getting there. And so the kids, the younger generation, those are the people that we have to go after. And one of the things I've seen is that when a tree is young, the limbs are easy to bend when it's like a young sapling. But once that tree gets deep rooted and old, you try to bend the limb, it snaps. And so even though they've gone through a lot of that 7-year programming, they're still a little bit more flexible than the older generation. And the reason why the parents tend to try to hold them back is because the parents have a belief system that tells them if they ask any questions, they look anywhere else, if they believe any other thing, that they're bound to damnation and eternal fire and all these other crazy things. But the younger generation, their ears are wide open, and they're open to hear and try to even conceive and understand and even spread and share this information. And so that's why, you know, we have to target them. And all we can do as a community is continue to look for, work with, and honor the younger generation. Don't look at the way they dress. Don't look at the way that they act in some cases. Because remember, we were all young. We all did dumb stuff when we were young. Every single one of us. Some of us are still doing dumb stuff.
You're acting young, right? Yeah.
But we have to work with them. We have to talk to them. We have to find ways to communicate with them on a level that they can understand, and try to bring them to this knowledge, not to force it down their throat like their parents forced other things down their throat, but to bring them to an understanding where, hey, let's ask some questions and get them asking questions so they can become their own researchers.
You know, you really point out something that, you know, I've been criticized a few times on the way sometimes I want to deliver information. And little did they know, you and I follow the same philosophy when it comes down to talking and communicating with the younger generation, because it is them who don't know the past. What they hear today is what they see, especially when it comes down to the UFOs. They may know, okay, some of the stories of Roswell, some of the bigger things, but when it comes down to all of those old stories that was big yesterday and that's not talked about today, and then at the same time when you're delivering that information, and this is why I came into this scene and saying, wait a minute, let's not be so serious, because the people that's older are still, man, this is serious. I've seen quotes and posts on comments on some of the videos I did here. Oh, this is serious. I'm like, no, dude, hold on a minute. These young people see the world totally different. In fact, they see it so different that if there was some apocalypse where zombies was walking around, most of us is gonna go and hide and get it. These kids gonna get hot pockets. They're gonna go get in the back of a pickup truck and just pop these things because they're doing it with video games anyway. This is their life. This is a joke to them. They're gonna save the world anyway. While we're sitting here panicking about the zombies, and oh yeah, we're gonna get into the game. I'm a arm carrying licensed individual, but yeah, we're gonna go out there and hit one of them in the chest, and the kids go, no, Rod, that's wrong. Headshot. You know, they know the drill. And they are tomorrow's leaders. And this is why we have so much of this congressional hearing coming out, because we do have young people that are now sitting in these political positions. They are curious. They do want to know, because the old school people ain't playing with this. They're not going to play with this thing at all. And so when you come back to educating them, this is how, when I do some of the shows, you know, I just stick to the bottom, making sure then I tie it into the past with curiosity, the why questions, because it's the young people to get them to be curious. And they're already curious. And now they're not religious, they're spiritual, most of them. And so now they're and they don't trust most of all this other crap out here anyway. And so now it's like, okay, let me just push them over the edge to say, okay, wait a minute, I didn't think about it that way. Let me go look into this thing about these underwater creatures now. You know, okay, they're bigger than just aliens. Oh, there's more than all of this. Because again, if they go with the narratives that we've already had and what most of us carry, they will not be prepared for the future if some of these parents cut them off from their curiosity, is the whole thing, I would say, from there. And so I'm not going to hold you too much longer, but I do have a couple more things for you. Now, now we're going to shift focus now. Most people think that disclosure in UFOs is about to come. Now, my personal opinion, the game doesn't change. They just change the rules, and the game was not to give nothing up, and they're not going to do that, right? Do you think that we are getting close to disclosure, as opposed to us saying, hey, we know about this particular thing. Now, y'all need to tell us, here's a FOIA Act. And of course, they put it in the private sector. That's not going to happen. Versus them opening up the doors and say, these are all the things y'all don't know about because y'all didn't ask. You want disclosure, here it is. And then one more part of that disclosure, you know, you remember recently they had the FAA audio that came out that they was talking to planes, were talking about seeing UAPs in the sky, right? And this is, and I think John Greenwald released this. Now, when we think about disclosure, once again, how many people, Billy, do you think want to get off that airplane and be handed a sheet of paper as they're getting ready to get their baggage that said, by the way, we just had a UFO encounter and it cut off some of the instrument panel, but you lived. It was a great flight. You know, and then the people getting on the next flight, oh, by the way, the last flight had a UFO encounter. We're going back the same route. We might see them again. They cut off some of the instrument panel, but the plane didn't crash. So that makes it a good flight. Right. Is that disclosure? Is that what they really after?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. It's always they want to hit you with the fear factor, and they want to also hit you with the fact that they have these big question marks. They never can answer a direct answer. They can never give you a direct answer on the question. They always give you these evasive questions, evasive answers, and never directly answer the question. If you go and say, "Hey, are UFOs real?" They're going to start hemming and hawing and giving you this indirect UAP / where it's a phenomenon and we're trying to figure. They're never going to just say either yes or no. And so the real disclosure is coming from people like you, me, and many others in the community that continue to work, research, study, travel, and continue to have the bravery, literally the bravery it takes to keep talking up, speaking up, and bringing forth the information in the ways that we do. You know, so one person mentioned, if you want to get to the kids, you got to get on TikTok. I got almost 1 million followers just on TikTok. My TikTok is incredible right now, and that is the younger generation. And so we just got to keep on finding ways to navigate this matrix ourselves and bring disclosure ourselves, because they're never going to bring us the real disclosure, because they would have to then admit that they've been lying for the last couple hundred years. And I don't think they really want to do that. And so since they're not going to do that, we have to then bring disclosure ourselves. And then when it's the 100th monkey effect, when 100 people accept the information, then it becomes like a snowball rolling down the hill, and it then eventually becomes common accepted knowledge. Because in the 100th monkey effect, one monkey started washing his food in the river, and another one saw that out of the whole group and started trying to do it. And then over time, the scientists kept tracking how many more monkeys were learning how to wash their food like this. Over time, it took about 100 monkeys. When they got to the 100th monkey, guess what happened? The other monkeys simultaneously, not only in one continent, but even in a separate continent divided by an ocean, all started washing their food the same exact way, because the consciousness is connected through an invisible web, just like the Hopi prophecies talked about. And so when we get to that point, that's when we will reach this global sensation of acceptance with what's going on. And when that happens, with the understanding of real disclosure, in other words, understanding that these beings, these UAPs, USOs, underwater life, space life, multiple types of life forms exist, then we will come together and we will stop doing all this divide and conquer garbage. And we'll do one simple thing. We will just say no. We will stop playing their game. And when we stop playing their game, their time is up. And it's time for a new paradigm to occur, to take place on this planet. One that is totally different, economic system that's totally different, political system gone, religious system's gone. A totally new way of living will happen on this planet. And then and only then will we be considered mature enough to then openly have contact with these beings in a way that, just like me and you walking outside of the house and walking down the street. So it's going to take a little bit more time, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of moving parts to that. And you just brought it up, especially when it comes down to those monkeys in the story of tapping into what I call the internet of consciousness. Just like we can get online and get stuff from China through the internet, the same thing, our consciousness, plug it into somebody else's in China. And I do that a lot. I actually kind of meditate to find out if there's somebody in China got the knowledge of what I need. How can I get to his inner CEO to make a deal with my CEO to get me the information, right? So I do that a lot in this pretty much. And I think it's something that it's all collective. And I think as we look at the conversation that began tonight of what's in our waters, the conversation of what's in our space, and the conversations of where we are today was a hidden agenda that I had. And of course, you just put it all together that, wait a minute, these are all could be different civilizations, different people, but we're all connected through something, this one area. And there will be a point that whatever disconnected us in the past, where the water creatures went to the water and we stayed up here and they went into space, and the people that left the planet went somewhere else, and whatever divided it is soon to be coming back, right? And I don't know if it's that 12th planet they'd be talking about, but now I heard that was more destructive, at this point. But the whole point is there's going to be a point where we are going to be reconnected. And are we ready for it? Are people ready to have their minds open to the possibility that this may be just one matrix and we're all in it, serving our own computer parts of it? But at the end of the day, this thing gets really deep. And Billy, I just really thank you for being here tonight. And at the same time, once again, just taking the time out to being a person that is leading. I say you're one of the leaders of it. You have taken this thing to a whole nother level, and especially, because I hold the fours, right? I hold the fours, yeah. And I did that one day. I was taking a picture and somebody like, what is that? Don't worry. You'll find out, he's like, oh, why you got it down this way in your pocket? No, that's a whole different other meaning. We this way, baby, so it's just one of the deals of really putting it out there, man. And again, I appreciate you having me in the films, being here with you and Elizabeth, and just talking to y'all behind the scenes. People don't have a clue to the vision and the things that you have already put into play. And I just tell people, stick around. The best is yet to come, when it deals with forbidden knowledge. And so I'm just excited about that. And of course, me having my 5K journey and trying to get to 5,000 subscribers was just a dream, and I know you was like, hey man, we'll get you there.
We're going to get you there, man. Everybody got to subscribe to Why the Big Secret on YouTube. Roderick Martin. Go ahead and sign up now. Subscribe now.
Yeah. So we almost there, and pretty much. So what's next for you and what you got going on for people to do? I can't wait to us to put on some type of new conference, and we can do something here in Dallas. I know we talked about it or something, but what's next? What should people expect that's coming down the pipeline? We'll give them a sneak preview.
Yeah. Well, I'm setting up the Forbidden World Tour right now. I'm in the process of setting that up. The Forbidden World Tour, going to hit some states in the U.S., also in Europe, and potentially in India, and maybe in Africa as well. So all that's being set up right now. The Forbidden World Tour 2023. We're also going to host a Forbidden Conscious Awards in 2023. We're just waiting to lock down the venue. We're working on that right now. It's going to be just like on the same level as the Oscars, and we're going to start awarding people in this community that have been busting their tails, working for scraps, spending their own money to get things done. As you know, that's how we do. Broderick.
Oh my God, yeah.
And, we spend everything we got. We give everything we got for years. And so, people who put this out, we're going to have the people, though, the community is going to help vote for nominees. And then also ultimately, once the nominees are selected, they're going to help vote for the actual winners of those categories. There'll be multiple categories, everything from podcast and radio to activism, to philanthropy, to influencer. I mean, all these different categories that we have, we're going to be offering, up all these different categories and creating the Conscious Award. So I'm looking forward to that. And also just, again, taking Forbidden Knowledge to NASDAQ. Right now, Forbidden Knowledge is we're in round 2. Round 2 ends, I think, in 20 days for people that want to invest in shares on Forbidden Knowledge. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com. 20 days left to invest and get shares. We're uplisting to a Reg A Plus in a few weeks. And then after that, in first quarter of 2023, we are uplisting to NASDAQ, which is going to be an amazing opportunity for a lot of people that own shares of Forbidden Knowledge. So a lot of big stuff on the horizon, man. A lot of big stuff.
This is where you just get that applause, and and I could give the team sign for some of these people because, it's nothing that, you got that Midas touch. Everything you touch turn to gold. And why not, right? Gold signifies wealth and everything else, man. I have a couple of my crew members I'm going to bring up just to say hello to you, and then we'll get you on out of here.
Right.
Because we're going to have our little discussion, about 10 minutes of a little panel here. This is Mateo. And then this is Rob G. So y'all meet the greatness of Billy. And
nice to meet y'all.
Hey, Billy,
Yeah.
very
Yes,
nice
sir.
to meet you too. It's
Nice
quite
to meet
the
you
honor.
too. Exactly. Sitting backstage
Thank you.
listening to a lot of that
Appreciate
Billy Carson goodness, man. I had to unsubscribe and resubscribe again real quick, man. You speaking the truth out there.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
all right, Billy, say hello to Elizabeth for me. And we'll be back down there and let y'all know he does everything first class. So when he picked me up the last time from the airport, it was a Rolls Royce with a chauffeur. And I took the long route. The guy said, which way? And I said, stop at the store over there too, so I could just get out of the car. And Junior, man, he made it all look good. He's a great guy, man. He's like, okay, I'm gonna make you look good. I'm gonna make you look good. So it was all good. But anyway, man, appreciate you. See you soon. And we'll talk. Thank you for coming up tonight.
Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of the night.
Take care.
Appreciate it, man. Take care.
All right, guys. So that was Billy. You guys know him. But, one of the things, we're just going to talk just a little bit and get out.